This book is also known as, Starting from a Blue Silver Grass Martial Soul, Seeking the Way from the Heavens, First Stop. Douluo World, objectively describing characters, aiming to restore their personalities, does not excessively belittle or beautify them. However, the character designs of Xiaogang and Tang San are indeed negative, so this article will also truthfully describe them. In the world of Douluo, the protagonist is in opposition to Tang San for no other reason, with a different stance. The protagonist comes from a commoner background and stands as a commoner soul master. The main storyline in Douluo continent is about refining the heart and seeking enlightenment, immersing oneself in the martial soul hall, and leading the human race to fight against the gods. Keywords of the novel. Douluo's Flower Development Blue Silver Grass No Pop-ups, Douluo's Flower Development Blue Silver Grass TXT Complete Collection Download, Douluo's Flower Development Blue Silver Grass Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Morning Light Like Blood Practice, Fishing Young Boy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Morning Light Like Blood Practice, Fishing Young Boy Douluo Continent, Tiando Empire, Tiando City. Lanshi Village, a small village with only over 300 households located on the outskirts of Tiando City, adjacent to the Sunset Forest. Because the village is adjacent to a small stream winding out of the Sunset Forest to the west, the water is clear, and both sides are covered with blue-silver grass. The reflected stream is like a blue crystal, hence its name. 3 years ago, Lanshi Village was still an unknown small village because it was far from the official road of Tiando City and was even behind several surrounding villages. Of course, located below the imperial capital, Lanshi Village, even if relatively backward, is definitely much more prosperous than the Holy Soul Village in the original work. Now, Lanshi Village is already a well-known wealthy village around Tiando City. Even a month ago, the eldest prince of the Tiando Empire, Xiaogang, personally came to Lanshi Village. And this has made Lanshi Village even more popular in the Heavenly Do Empire. Even in the towering, Soul Master Circle, some people know the name of Lanshi Village as the Village of Braised Lamb, to the extent that there is an endless stream of people coming to Lanshi Village now. Most of the people who came here thought that these were all thanks to the respected village chief of Lanshi Village. Only a very small number of people know that the person who brought about such a great change in Lanshi Village is a little boy who has only reached 23 days. All was quiet, and the sky was still very dim. The distant eastern sky was covered in indigo, while the nearby sky was still dotted with stars. On a boulder over 3 meters high by a small stream by the village, there was a small figure climbing and turning. That was a child only 5 or 6 years old, with tender and white skin, short black hair that looked sharp, and beautiful features, especially those bright eyes with distinct black and white and pupils like starry sky embellishments, clear and deep. Just dressed in a colorful outfit, I dare not be praised. The little boy climbed up, relaxed his muscles and bones, and then sat down cross-legged. Sure enough, nature is the most perfect sculptor. The giant stones under the boy's body are round and without any sharp edges. However, at the top is a circular platform with a diameter of about 1 meter, as if cut off by a peerless swordsman. The cross-dot section is smooth and traceless, perfect for sitting here. After sitting firmly, the boy overlapped his hands, rubbed his thumbs together, placed them in the dantian, closed his eyes, adjusted his breathing, and slowly relaxed his mind, allowing himself to calm down faster. In no time, the boy opened his eyes and the first blood-red glow appeared in the sky. Here we go, the boy whispered to himself, and his newly calmed mind was just about to take advantage of it. Keeping his fingerprinting position still, the boy just opened his eyes wide and focused on observing every scene of the sunrise in Tanggu. He slowly inhaled through his nose and then slowly exhaled from his mouth, inhaling continuously and exhaling slightly. Looking from the boy's perspective, a bloody and magnificent creation full of infinite mysteries leaped before his eyes. In the distance, an orange-red light rose from the line of heaven and earth, and the red clouds scattered in all directions, as if the sun had left bloodstains on the indigo sky. The ground was covered in golden yellow, and the golden light accompanied the red clouds, illuminating the distant patches of blue-silver grass and rugged strange rocks. They were all adorned with golden edges and sprinkled with golden rays. The winding stream has also faded its original blue color under the reflection of the red glow. Starting from the edge of the sky, it slowly turns red towards closer, just like the blood flowing from the sky. The red glow gradually faded, and a golden light rose. The sky became brighter and everything on the field ahead became clearer. The field covered with blue-silver grass, from far to near, gradually receded with gold. The blue still shone brightly, and the strange stones scattered on the field gave rise to terrifying shadows. Facing the boy, the closer the strange stones were to the boy, the higher and more strange they became, and the longer and more terrifying the shadows became. But the closer it is to this direction, the fewer strange stones there are. The overall layout of the strange stones scattered on the fields of Tiando City and Sunset Forest presents a pyramid shape. The giant stone sitting on the little boy is the top of this golden tower, the tallest and largest among the strange stones, and the only one with a smooth surface and no pits. What's even more miraculous is that there are no stones around this stone, as if no other stones are allowed to enter one's own territory, standing alone. The rest of the stones are mostly compact in size, forming various shapes for group heating. Perhaps this is also an individual beloved by nature itself. This was the boy's involuntary emotion when he first saw the scene of 10,000 Shadows Xiaogang. Now that I've seen this scene a lot, I naturally won't pay as much attention as I did the first time. It is more important to observe the sunrise and cultivate oneself. The scenery in the distance has changed again. The golden light rises and brews, increasing as if reaching a peak, finally causing a qualitative change. The sun came out. At first, it was just a small edge. Gradually, he trembled with golden light, rising higher and higher. In the end, he was like a golden crow that had just left its nest. Its wings were not yet full, and it had a hint of youthful red, yet it scattered countless golden lights recklessly. At this time, everything between heaven and earth seems to be different. It is full of vitality. A vibrant vitality permeates the world. Under this vitality, all things in heaven and earth undergo subtle changes. The boy surpasses the spirit of ordinary people and can clearly perceive that the vitality of the blue-silver grass on the ground starts to slowly flourish when the sunset comes out. After the sun is completely out, it completes an astonishing change, and the vitality it contains now is much stronger than under the night. Although, in the boy's eyes, it is still very weak. But this process of change gave him great inspiration. Retract your thoughts, there is still something to do next. In the gradually brightening red plate on the distant horizon, it seemed like a layer of mist had added, steaming as if something was brewing. Suddenly, the water mist disappears, or there is no water mist, just an illusion. When this illusion disappears, the center of the sun seems to flash a faint purple color. If it is not for amazing eyesight and sufficient focus, its existence would never have been detected. Purple chi from the east. The boy's mind was completely focused, as described in the original work. He no longer exhaled, but only breathed in slightly and slowly, while his eyes stared closely at the fleeting purple color. The appearance of purple chi was not long, and as the bright red in the east gradually faded away, the purple chi also completely disappeared. Slowly close your eyes and exhale a long breath of turbid air from your body. After sitting quietly for a while, the boy opened his eyes and said, without the internal training method of purple extreme magic eyes in the original work, relying solely on simple inhalation methods is still too inefficient. Sitting still for a while, he watched the sunrise for a while. Even though he had been watching this scene almost every day for the past 2 years, he would not relax because of it. He carefully observed every scene and deepened the visual imprint of the rising sun in his mind. The boy didn't stop watching until the sun gradually rose and the sunlight no longer softened. "It's time to go back and help Uncle Luo herd the sheep," the boy said, propping up his hands and moving his buttocks forward to the edge of the giant stone platform, then sliding down like a slide. Pop! The boy landed steadily. I took a photo of the brightly colored pants embroidered with various small animal patterns, and then walked towards the village. As he walked, the boy roasted, "I don't understand Uncle Luo's taste. Why do you think the more things embroidered on your pants, the better it looks?" Thinking of Uncle Luo's poor condition at the time and handing it over to him solemnly, Muzha looked depressed and said, "Why didn't you resist agreeing at that time?" Walking to the side of the stream, Muzha looked at the reflection on the water. A handsome and lovely little boy was wearing a bright red cloth shirt on his upper body and green pants on his lower body. He also had embroidery on various small animals all over his body, and even his shoes were a tiger's head on one side. Ah, Muzha shamefully covered his face. "I really don't have the face to look at it. After a while, the people in the village should come out to work. How can I go back to the village?" Thinking of the scene where I appeared in the village later, a group of aunties, pinching and touching each other, moved their hands up and down, and Muzha's face was full of fear. At this moment, Muzha's eyes twitched and he noticed something. Suddenly, one hand skillfully probed the stream in front of him, and when he came out again, he had already picked up a large blue-scaled fish. Blue-scaled fish is a specialty of this small stream, with delicious meat and few fish bones. The soup cooked with it also has a milky aroma, which is deeply loved by people. Usually, due to its similar color to the water in this stream, it appears hidden in the stream and is difficult to be discovered. It was also because of the colorful colors that this blue-scaled fish was exposed and easily caught by Muzha. "Even you come to mock me, come back with me to make soup," said Muzha, holding the blue-scaled fish tightly in his hands and lifting it up to his eyes with a gloomy expression. Having a blue-scaled fish can also attract some attention to help him share the damage, and Muzha has gained some confidence to face those uncles and aunts, walking back with great strides. After all, this place is not very close to the village. The outermost household of this village is also about 3 kilometers away. Jogging from the village to here, climbing up a boulder over 3 meters high, and then watching the sunrise on the boulder, deepening the impression of imagination, is the morning lesson that Muzha has set for himself. Absorbing the purple chi from the east is just a way to observe the sunrise. He does not have a specific method for absorbing the purple chi from the east, and can only draw gourds and gourds according to the original text. Although the efficiency was not high, there was no hint of purple in Tang San's eyes. But it's better than wasting nothing out of thin air. It has to be said that the first wisp of purple energy at sunrise is still very effective. Even if the utilization efficiency is not high, over time, Muzha can clearly feel that his physical fitness is much higher than other children, and his strength reaches the level of adults. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to climb up that huge rock. At first, he also watched the sunrise underground, and the morning lesson he had set for himself at that time included an additional practice of climbing stones. The giant stone turned round and smooth, with a steep slope. To climb up, relying solely on hands and feet is not enough. It requires the skillful coordination of limbs and core when exerting force, as well as some small techniques to adjust one's center of gravity and save energy. Practicing climbing stones can not only exercise one's endurance and breath, but also enhance the coordination and flexibility of the body. Muzha also deliberately adjusted the level of exercise each time. After all, his body is still small, so it is not advisable to exercise excessively. Moderate exercise can help with development, but excessive exercise can easily damage muscles and bones, affecting development. For his future height, Muzha still cares a lot. Practice slowly like this. A year ago, he was just able to climb the boulder. Now, with the improvement of his physical fitness, he can quickly climb that boulder. It is difficult to practice climbing stones anymore, and he has prepared a new way. In 3 more months, it will be the time for the martial souls in the village to awaken. Muzha is also curious about what kind of martial soul he will awaken. It has been more than 5 years since he came to this world. In his previous life, he was a researcher of traditional Chinese medicine pharmacology. The company organized a group construction to climb Mount Taishan Mountain near the end of the year. These researchers who have been buried in the laboratory all year round are the key targets of the company's care. They are named and their team building must go, fearing that one of them will suddenly die in the laboratory. There was a team building, and the company also reimbursed all expenses. Public travel expenses made Muzha very happy, but then he became extremely happy and sad. As soon as he arrived at Dai Temple, Muzha felt dizzy and fell to the ground. He woke up to the world of Douluo continent. I don't know if it's fate or just a coincidence, but his parents still named him Muzha. Unfortunately, the father of Muzha was brutally killed by a passing evil soul master while transporting crops to Tiando City. At that time, Muzha had just arrived in this world for 17 days, and upon hearing this terrible news, his mother was in a hurry. In addition, she had just given birth and her body was still weak, so she passed away directly. Left behind the young Muzha to be adopted by the current village chief Roger. Roger's wife passed away early due to illness and did not leave any offspring for Roger. After his wife passed away, Roger did not remarry and remained alone all along. After adopting Muzha, Roger has always been very kind to him. Muzha was also grateful to Roger. When he was 2 years old, he followed Roger to the farmland and saw that Roger only knew simple farming and weeding. Without realizing it, he spoke out to remind Roger to cultivate waterways to irrigate farmland and mentioned the ecological farming system of crops, fish, and shrimp. At first, Roger just laughed at this and thought it was a child's whimsical idea. However, as Muzha further explained, Roger gradually realized some truth. In addition, with Muzha's sincere words, Roger, with a doting mentality of satisfying his child, planned to give it a try and cultivate waterways. It would only take about a month, and even if the results were not significant, if it could satisfy Muzha's whims, Roger would be very willing to do so. Don't try, don't know. It's a shock to try. Roger's annual income has increased fivefold according to the waterway cultivation and fish and shrimp farming methods planned by Muzha. The harvest of a single crop is half that of last year, coupled with additional income from fish and shrimp, making Roger the richest man in the village. The villagers of Lanshi village followed suit when they saw this. Muzha plans to help them because he has also grown up eating from 100 families. Roger, after all, is alone. Sometimes he works until very late and comes back. At that time, he will be sent to the villager's house to take care of. After all, Muzha has an adult soul and will also help with things within his abilities when he goes to the house. The relationship with each family in the village is also very good. Muzha spent 2 days designing a water channel aquaculture and planting cycle system based on the distribution of farmland in the village and the proximity of nearby streams. After crossing over, his spirit was exceptionally strong, and his memories of his past life were clear. Things that may have been forgotten in the previous life can be remembered in this life. This set of waterway circulation system was created based on the knowledge of water conservancy engineering seen in the leisure time of the previous life. Under the guise of Roger, Muzha presented this set of hydraulic cycle diagrams to the people in the village. The villagers were all very grateful to Roger. Coincidentally, the old village chief was also elderly and had long planned to retire, so they chose Roger as the new village chief. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Development caused by boiled lamb. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Development caused by boiled lamb. Roger became the village chief, and he himself was very confused. He felt like he had become the village chief without doing anything. He wanted to do something for the village to repay the village, but now the village is relatively prosperous due to the water circulation system, and he doesn't know what to do. But after thinking for a while and unable to come up with any good ideas, he came to find Muzha. He also realized that this kid was smarter than him, and his previous election as village chief was also a credit to this kid. After realizing that Roger had come to find him, Muzha pondered for a while before coming up with an idea. Roger's mouth twitched unconsciously upon seeing this, but in an instant it turned into his father's contented smile. He thought to himself, this kid is really smart, he has the style I used to have. For Roger's psychological activities, Muzha was not aware, and after repeatedly deducing whether his plan could succeed, he finally confirmed it. After traveling through time, he not only found that he could never forget, but his thinking was also much more flexible than in the previous life. He looked through the difficult problems in his past life memories and found that the problems he found difficult and abnormal in his past life could be solved at a glance. In his past life, he had to be at least a genius in a certain Chinese youth class. Muzha has expressed more than once that the world of learning gods is different from the world of ordinary people. The world of learning gods is so unreasonable. Returning to the main topic, Muzha made a plan and muttered to Uncle Roger all night. The next morning, Roger still looked skeptical, but he still followed Muzha's instructions. Roger went to inquire where there was a lamb seller, but when Muzha saw him leaving, he still lacked confidence. He went to the village blacksmith in advance and made a uniquely shaped copper pot. That's right, it's a copper pot used to make hot pot. After 3 years in Douluo continent, Muzha discovered that although the recipes here are similar to those in his past life, there are still differences. It is obvious that there is no hot pot in Douluo continent. Muzha bought the seasoning needed for hot pot, and then cut the beef and mutton that Roger had bought before into slices. When Roger finished buying the lamb and returned, the hot pot was also ready. After tasting a bite of boiled lamb, Roger immediately said that he had bought fewer sheep. Roger harvested a total of 17 lambs and over 20 adult lambs this time. Because there is very little lamb needed in Tiando City. Muzha told Roger not to worry, they are not really trying to root in this industry. After all, he wanted the villagers to live better. He asked Roger to buy sheep, but only for him to play a guiding role. The villagers of Lanshi village have just received the dividends of the first water circulation system, and now everyone has some extra money. Roger's pioneering cultivation of water channels has already had a certain reputation in the village, and the villagers believe that he can lead everyone towards a better life. Now, with Roger taking the lead and calling on everyone to use some of their savings to raise sheep, there is a high chance of success. Yes, raising sheep. Muzha's second step plan is not to open a hot pot restaurant, but to raise sheep. The method of making hot pot can easily be plagiarized by others. If a hot pot shop is opened, it is no match for the greedy aristocrats injecting a large amount of money. Raising sheep is different. With more hot pot restaurants, the demand for lamb will increase sharply, while there are fewer sheep raised around Tiando. In Lanshi village, collective sheep raising is a large-scale project with a large number of sheep herds, which naturally attracts people to buy sheep. And this is Muzha's plan to become rich. He first invented hot pot to stimulate market demand, and then raised sheep on a large scale to serve as the supplier and reap the dividends. As they had imagined, the villagers raised sheep for a year, and Muzha estimated that the quantity was sufficient, so he asked Uncle Roger to open a hot pot restaurant in Tiando City. On the first day of its opening, the hot pot restaurant was packed with customers like a flowing stream. Some even brought their own tables and placed them outside the restaurant to eat hot pot. The aroma was even stronger, and the people on the table were sweating profusely. The oil flowing from their mouths even stimulated the people on the road. Even though people in Douluo continent have not tried hot pot, who wouldn't want to give it a try when smelling the aroma? So in just 3 days, someone came to Lanshi village to ask how the sheep were sold. Muzha knew that an imitator had arrived, but it hit their target, so he sold it to them at a slightly higher market price. The price was carefully considered and determined by Muzha. Although Lanshi village controls 80% of the sheep population around Tiando City, the market price can be said to be determined by them, but he will not set it too high. After all, this is a contradictory world with behavior habits leaning towards ancient times and soul guidance technology slightly resembling modern civilization. They are just a group of weak villagers, and now the profits are still small, which they can hold on to. No matter how high, there will be greedy nobles who are envious. Muzha couldn't imagine what would happen then. The current price is just right, contentment is always enjoyable. Although that was the case, Muzha's heart was actually filled with depression at the time, but he also knew that people should avoid excessive greed at all times, let alone when he was still so weak. In this way, the second step of Lanshi village was very successful, and the villagers' income increased nearly 6 times from the original level. This has made Lanshi village the wealthiest village around Tiandu. Even the city chief who came to Lanshi village to collect grain and taxes was shocked and quickly reported this matter to his superiors. His superior is Zhong Lao, who is in charge of the finance of Tiandu city. He was also surprised to hear about this. The tax revenue in Lanshi village has just tripled, but it has increased 6 times in 2 years. How can this not be surprising? Zhong Laojiang talked about this matter at a court meeting, and the ministers in the court were all surprised, but no one paid special attention to it. For them, a small village was not worth much attention. At most, they thought it was a good year's luck and sufficient harvest, or that the city chief had squeezed the mud legs below. Everyone thought to themselves that when they returned to their fiefdom, they would also raise taxes. Some people believe that this is an opportunity, and this person is the Grand Prince Xue Qinghe. At this time, it is also Qian Renxue. On the spot, Xueqing River requested the Snow Knight Emperor to go to Lanshi village for an investigation. The Snowy Knight Emperor felt that the surroundings were just around Tiandu city, and a visit could still enhance the image of the royal family as friendly to the people, so he agreed. The ministers also thought that the crown prince was doing this to improve his political achievements and create a reputation, and praised the crown prince's virtues. Some ministers exchanged glances with officials with whom they had good relationships, all conveying a message. After the assassination, the crown prince has indeed grown a lot. On the other hand, the second prince Xueze, who had not yet been killed by Qian Rengshu, was angry and was once again crushed by the Xueqing River. The screen rotates. The villagers of Lanshi village were very excited when they learned that the eldest prince was coming to inspect. They may never have expected to have the chance to see such a big shot in their lifetime. Roger was also very excited, and as the village chief, he had to accompany Xue Qinghe to visit the entire Blue Creek village. He couldn't help feeling nervous, and occasionally talked about how to speak. He prepared a lot of speeches, but felt it was not appropriate. Finally, he found Muzha to come up with a solution. This was the first time Muzha had seen this big man so bewildered. Muzha could understand Roger's excitement, and while helping him prepare his speech, he also lamented that in the vast Tiandu Empire, it was actually an undercover agent who did the real thing. Muzha has been here for 5 years and has also heard about the deeds of the Grand Prince Xue Qinghe in recent years. As a result, he can guess the purpose of Qian Renshue's visit here, to gain a good reputation and compete for the crown prince's position. But no matter what Qian Rengshu's goal is, she has indeed made some efforts for the lower echelons of the Tiandu Empire. We cannot ignore her achievements just because her purpose is impure. The subsequent visit went smoothly, and Roger used the selection and cultivation methods of waterway recycling ecology taught by Muzha to cope with the snow. Qian Rengshu is satisfied with the most desired selection and cultivation method for waterway recycling ecology. After all, sheep are very common. As long as hot pot is brought over, it can benefit local sheep farmers. However, this waterway recycling requires certain technology, and how to plan and drain the waterway is knowledge. Qian Renxue even wanted Roger to become an official in the Water Resources Department, but was refused by Roger. He didn't know any knowledge about water conservancy. Muzha told him not to expose what he had come up with. Although Roger didn't know why, he agreed. Muzha anticipated in advance that Qian Renxue would want Roger to become an official, so he thought of a way out for him in advance. Using the excuse of caring for the villagers, Qian Renxue dispelled the idea. During Qian Renshue's inspection of Lanxi village, Mu Zhe accompanied him throughout the journey. Due to his handsome and lovely appearance, he was even killed by Qian Renshue's touch of the head. At that time, Mu Zhe was completely confused. He had a fondness for the character Qian Renshue in his past life, and after arriving in Douluo continent, he also fantasized about finding Qian Renshue as his wife after becoming invincible. So I came to accompany you this time with a mindset of getting familiar with my face in advance. Who knew I would be slapped in the head? What should I do if my future wife touches my head and kills me? Others thought that his bewildered expression was due to the sudden favor of the eldest prince, and he was at a loss and laughed. Only Mu Zhe felt that his heart had been hit by 10,000 critical hits. Swearing inwardly in frustration, I must touch back 1,000 times, 1,000 times. Since that inspection, Roger felt that their identities were different and that clothes must match their identities, so he went to Tiando City to customize 2 sets of clothes. I worked on 2 sets of clothes for a month in total, and it wasn't until yesterday that Roger solemnly handed them over to him. What Mu Zhe is wearing now is specially customized by Roger, and there will be a set of the same style for future washing. Mu Zhe still remembers clearly that after the tailor measured his figure, he heard Roger's production requirements and looked puzzled and amazed. I really don't know what he was thinking at the time, the expression on his face was so complicated. Mu Zhe was already powerless to resist and could only accept it. Now it's the moment of life and death. Are you ready, Xiaolan? Mu Zhe looked at the approaching village entrance and the continuous flow of people who had just arrived at 7 o'clock. He lifted the blue-scaled fish to his eyes and asked seriously. Ready. All right, let's go. Regardless of the blue-scaled fish's white eyes, Mu Zhe took direct control of it and looked ahead, thinking to himself, 2 streets, if I run faster, no one should be able to see it. Swallowing saliva, Mu Zhe's eyes gradually became sharp. Go ahead. With a shout, Mu Zhe scattered Yazi and ran forward. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The most common first step for the strength of the heavenly powers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The most common first step for the strength of the heavenly powers. The late emperor had not yet started his own business, but the middle path collapsed. As soon as Mu Zhe took half a step, he was stopped by someone. Xiao Zhe. Lu Xueqing, who came out to buy groceries in the morning, saw Mu Zhe and her eyes lit up. Mu Zhe had just taken half a step when he heard the sound, like a bolt from the clear sky, directly hitting his head, and his whole body stiffened. Stubbornly turning his head, looking to one side, and seeing someone coming again, there was another thunderbolt. Mu Zhe lost his sight and murmured, "It's over, it's still on the way." Lu Xueqing lives next door to his family and has a very special relationship with them. Mu Zhe quickly regained his senses and ran over to pick up the vegetables bought by Lu Xueqing. He said, "Aunt Lu, I came out so early to buy vegetables. Let me help you pick them up." Lu Xueqing didn't show any courtesy to him, and she also knew that this kid was not an ordinary person, much stronger than her. Moreover, Mu Zhe was also someone she grew up watching from a young age, so she naturally wouldn't be too polite. I handed over all the groceries I bought to Mu Zhe, and even touched his little brain and said, "Xiao Zhe, you look really nice today. Is this the clothes Roger customized for you?" Without hearing the presumptuous laughter of Aunt Lu, Mu Zhe was very surprised in his heart and said, Is the aesthetic of Douluo continent so special? Sure enough, people with high looks look good in whatever clothes they wear. Thinking about this, Mu Zhe's face regained a confident smile. Yes, Aunt Lu, Uncle Roger just brought it back. Along the way, chatting and laughing, they returned to the village, and the villagers on the way also praised Mu Zhe's festive attire, like a lucky doll, to the point where everyone came to grab Mu Zhe's little face. At first, Mu Zhe resisted, but in the end, he became numb. It's really numb. Mu Zhe touched his face and felt that his skin had really thickened. Aunt Lu laughed on the side, tears streaming down her face. Finally, I walked to my doorstep. Muzha handed the dishes to Aunt Lu and said, "Aunt Lu, call Sister Ning to come to my house for fish soup at noon." Speaking, Muzha waved the blue scaled fish in his hand. "Okay, I'll go make it for you later." Roger made it too bad last time and wasted the good ingredients. Lu Xueqing didn't refuse either. Lu Xueqing's husband passed away early, and now there is only Lu Xueqing and a 12-year-old girl left in the family. The sister Ning that Muzha just called was Yang Yuning, the daughter of Lu Xueqing. It was originally very difficult for Lu Xueqing to live alone with a little girl. But Yang Yuning is very energetic. When she awakened her martial soul at the age of 6, she awakened the purple-eyed ice crystal fish martial soul, a high-level beast martial soul with innate soul power reaching level 7. Yang Yuning's talent was immediately valued by the special envoy of the Martial Soul Hall at that time, inviting her to join and ensuring that she would receive treatment as a second-class genius in the Martial Soul Hall. But the precocious Yang Yuning refused, because the envoy asked her to go to the headquarters of the Martial Soul Palace and the Martial Soul City for training. At that time, Roger had not yet moved here. The lives of Lu Xueqing and her daughter have also been very difficult before. Yang Yuning is afraid that after she leaves, Lu Xueqing will be alone in the village, bullied and without any help. She wants to find a junior soul master academy in Tiando City to study, so that she can take care of her mother more often when she comes back from school holidays. As for whether she will not receive good training after rejecting the invitation from the Martial Soul Hall, she doesn't really care. With her innate talent of level 7 soul power, she will be trained as a genius in any Soul Master Academy in Tiando City. Although there may seem to be many innate full soul powers in the original work, in fact, there are not many innate full soul powers in the entire Douluo continent. Usually, when the innate soul power reaches level 7, one can be called a genius, and even Zhu Zhuqing's innate soul power in Shrek 7 Monsters is only level 7. Yang Yuning also worked hard after entering the Soul Master Academy, and her soul power reached level 10 within 6 months of enrollment. And with the help of teachers from the Soul Master Academy, he successfully obtained a century-old soul ring and became a soul master. From then on, the lives of Yang Yuning and her daughter have greatly improved. Later, Roger led Muzha to move next door to them. Roger is a kind-hearted person who often helps Lu Xueqing in daily life. Lu Xueqing helped take care of Muzha while Roger was out, and the relationship between the two families became better and better. Even Yang Yuning once asked Muzha to let Lu Xueqing follow Roger. Muzha also thought the same way. The two hit it off immediately and often created opportunities to match Roger and Lu Xueqing. Roger and Lu Xueqing can also feel the kindness of the two children, and neither of them has refused, or both have the willingness to do so, just not explicitly, but they become increasingly intimate in daily life. Mainly because Roger has a thin skin and is too shy to speak up, Lu Xueqing cannot be allowed to speak up first about such matters. So their relationship has been like this until now. Muzha was speechless several times, but he couldn't believe that Roger, a seemingly heroic man, was so shy in the face of emotions. He felt embarrassed to use the moves that Muzha had given him. Later on, Muzha lay flat and let nature take its course. Anyway, the two families are now as close as one. Even in the eyes of the villagers, they have long been part of the same family. Now it happened that Yang Yuning was also on vacation at home. When Muzha went to practice in the morning, he thought of inviting them to come over for dinner, so there was a scene of Muzha fishing in the morning. Returning home, Muzha skillfully cleaned and marinated the blue-scaled fish. Then we started preparing breakfast. Roger is still sleeping soundly now. Now, based on the time of my past life, it's just 7 o'clock. Usually, Muzha wakes up Roger only after preparing his meal. At first, it was also Roger who got up to cook. Later, Muzha set up a youth cultivation plan, based on his past life memories and began to wake up early every day. However, every morning after practicing, Roger still hasn't woken up, let alone prepared breakfast. His cultivation plan is meticulous to the point where he has a schedule for every part of the day. Waiting for Roger to cook would waste some of his cultivation time, so Muja began to do it himself. 10 minutes later, 2 cups of hot milk, 2 eggs, 2 fruit and vegetable platters, and 2 nutritious breakfasts are ready. Roger, get up and eat. Muja shouted before starting to eat. Eating is an important part of Muja's cultivation plan. After all, at the beginning of cultivation, eating is the most important way for the human body to absorb nutrients. Many cultivation systems have high requirements for eating. Even as he transformed the ancient emperor of the wilderness, his childhood also began with eating. Every time Muja picks up a dish, there won't be too much or too little, which perfectly matches his chewing comfort. He will chew it repeatedly until the food is turned into foam before swallowing it. Milk is also easy to take a sip and put down, rather than being consumed ton by ton in one gulp. In addition, he also made a plan for what he eats every day to meet his daily cultivation needs. Without the condition of having a can of animal milk every day, Muja can only come up with a solution from the perspective of food absorption efficiency. Halfway through his meal, Roger yawned and walked over. "Good morning, Xiao Muja." "Good morning, Roger." Roger didn't wash up either, so he sat down and started eating. Muja glanced at Roger's highly individualistic and unrestrained hair, took a slow sip of milk, and said, "Aunt Lu will come to our house later." As soon as the words fell, Roger put down his chopsticks, panicked and forced himself to remain calm as he stood up and walked towards the restroom. At the entrance of the restroom, Roger calmly pushed the door in and closed it. Immediately, Roger's frantic and tumultuous voice came from inside. Muja continued to eat, but a mischievous smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, indicating that his conspiracy had succeeded. Muja finished eating and calmly got up to wipe off the milk stains on the corners of his mouth. Muja pinched the time and calculated. Roger should have finished washing, so he walked to the door of the restroom and knocked on the door, saying, "Don't worry, Uncle Roger, take your time washing. Aunt Lu will only come around noon." After speaking, Muja quickly ran out. Roger's angry voice came from behind, "Muja, you stinky kid, don't let me catch you." Muja was even happier when he heard Roger shout. "My legs are accelerating a bit." When he arrived at the yard, Muja rode on his beloved pony and cheerfully shouted, "Charge." The foal seemed to feel the excitement of its owner and ran happily towards its own sheep farm. Upon arriving at the sheep farm, Muja released the sheep and drove them towards the grassland where they were practicing in the morning. Along the way, Muja closed his eyes and rode on the back of the horse. During the journey, if a lamb wanted to fall behind, Muja would adjust the reins of the horse and walk towards the lamb, waving his whip to drive the lamb back to the flock. Thanks to the soul of Muja's past life, he was born with immense spiritual power. The immense spiritual power not only made Muja unforgettable, but also made him exceptionally intelligent. Such advantages cannot be ignored by Muja. Therefore, Muja came up with this method for training. Close your eyes and rely solely on your hearing to herd sheep. At the beginning of the training, Muja closed his eyes and listened to the chaotic cries of sheep in his ear, unable to distinguish them clearly. The sheep that fell behind can only be distinguished by Muja when they are relatively far away from the team, and then he hurriedly rushed over. However, as he practiced slowly, Muja's ability to distinguish information by listening to sound became stronger and stronger. It is becoming easier to distinguish the sheep from the large army of sheep. Later on, Muja was able to simulate the position map of the entire flock of sheep in his mind from hearing their calls. Afterwards, Muja abandoned listening to the sheep's calls and turned to distinguishing the more subtle hoof-stepping sounds hidden beneath the sheep's calls. Increased the difficulty several levels. Slowly training like this, until now, Muja has been able to predict his next move from the sound of each sheep's hoof stomping. This also means that Muja's plan for practicing listening and positioning has been preliminarily achieved. Shaking and swaying, Muzha drove the sheep to the destination. At this point, Muzha no longer drove the sheep and allowed them to scatter and search for food. He still sat on the foal with his eyes closed and his back straight. The foal leisurely walks slowly around the sheep, occasionally stopping to nibble on the blue-silver grass with dewdrops. This is one of Muzha's cultivation plans. Zama Bu. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Exercise Plan Youth Edition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Exercise Plan Youth Edition. After all, as someone who has experienced the bombardment of various information in his past life, Muzha knows the importance of foundation. Whether practicing martial arts or cultivating immortals, it is important to build a stable foundation. And for the vast majority of cultivation systems, the initial method of building a foundation is the simple Zhamabu. Of course, there is a reason why most of the heavens and worlds choose to take a horse stance to exercise their foundation. Zhamabu not only stabilizes the lower body, enhances core strength, but also slowly but effectively improves physical fitness. If combined with a certain breathing method, it can also have the effect of strengthening the body and gathering qi. Although in his past life, Muzha had also searched online for some techniques for horse riding, he understood everything he knew. If you really practice those skills without thinking, you may develop some problems. Mabu has very strict requirements for posture, which can be said to be a tiny difference and 1,000 miles away. Mabu Jia is right, it can indeed strengthen the body and keep fit. If the horse steps the wrong way, not only will it not strengthen the body, but it will also damage the muscles and knee joints. And everyone's body data is different, so the optimal horse stance for each person should also be different in subtle ways. We cannot blindly practice according to a standard posture. At this point, the importance of a renowned teacher is reflected. An experienced teacher will correct your mistakes in a timely manner during your practice to prevent you from damaging your body due to incorrect posture. A more sophisticated approach is to fine-tune your posture according to your body shape, making your horse stance more efficient. Without the advantage of being a famous teacher, Muzha can only find a solution on his own. Among the many schools of martial arts, one with a large proportion is pictorial boxing, which evolved by imitating the battles of wild animals. Zhamabu is also a type of pictographic boxing, and the posture of Mabu originated from the posture of riding a horse. When a person takes a horse stance, they imitate the ups and downs on the horse's back, which can improve blood circulation and increase metabolism. In his past life, Muzha read a report that said horse riding can improve leg shape. Both O.shaped and X.shaped legs can be changed to a normal leg shape during long-term horse riding exercises, and the legs themselves will also be shaped to be slender and stylish. Without direct guidance from a renowned teacher, Muzha thought of exploring through horseback riding. Although the method was relatively primitive, the efficiency would definitely be higher than simply following the horse riding steps taught on the internet in his previous life. So, Muzha asked Roger for a pony. Usually, Roger also dotes on Muzha very much. Without asking much, he once bought a pony for Muzha while selling sheep in the city. Horses are different from sheep. In the Heavenly Do Empire, horses are strategic goods that cannot be purchased. Roger also entrusted many talents to buy a foal. When the little foal was first bought back, its height was not as high as that of Muzha at the time. However, animals usually grow quickly, and after only 1 month of feeding, the size of the foal had already surpassed that of Muzha. Perhaps due to the concentration of spiritual energy in the world of Douluo World, people in this world generally develop faster. Although Muzha was only 4.5 years old at that time, his height had already risen to 1.2 meters. At that time, Muzha was so eager to test drive that he was grabbed by Roger. It took Roger half a day to finally ride his pony around under his supervision. After that, Roger still didn't trust Muzha and watched it for another week. After discovering that there was nothing wrong, he left it to Muzha. From then on, Muzha began his training plan of Zhamabu. In the blink of an eye, it has been a year now. Muja's equestrian skills are now at an advanced level. I also have my own understanding of Mabu. Combining knowledge from previous lives, this year's training has also been quite effective. It is obvious that Muja's height is higher than that of children of the same age in the village. Despite being young, my body has not fully grown yet. It can also be seen from the current body proportions that in the future, Muja will have a golden ratio of body shape. In addition, despite taking a horse stance for over a year, Muja always manages his time appropriately to prevent excessive exercise from affecting his development and does not excessively pursue the duration of the horse stance. Although the daily exercise time is not very long, it still makes Muja's lower body particularly stable, and his body bones are much stronger than other children. Ba, a little lamb, followed the delicious grass and came to Muja's side. At that moment, Muja finished his morning exercise. Muja stood up, took a deep breath, opened his eyes, and a clear expression of joy appeared in his eyes. Muja looked at the little lamb next to him, leaned down to touch its head, and said, "You have done a great job today." Just as Muja was taking a horse stance, a bleat from the lamb caused a slight fluctuation in Muja's already active qi and blood due to the horse stance. Only this slight fluctuation increased Muja's qi and blood activity once again. Moreover, Muja's powerful spiritual power made him keenly feel that the combination of the instantly oscillating qi and blood with the muscles and bones was particularly high. This means that at that moment, the nourishing efficiency of qi and blood on muscles and bones is much higher than before. This gave Muja a wake-up call. He could easily incorporate the vibration of his voice into his regular exercise, as there was also a method of tiger and leopard thunder, forging in his past life. This way, his Fitness Plan Youth Edition can be updated to version 3.0. His first version did not actually include the horse stance, but instead compiled a set of fitness exercises based on previous yoga, dance, martial arts techniques such as the 8-section brocade and tai chi, which focused on fitness. After getting a little older, I joined Zamabu and achieved the second version. Due to the gradual improvement of Mabu posture by Muja, I also established versions such as 2.0.1 and 2.0.2 halfway through. In addition, Muja also has Yunshan Plan Youth Edition and Lianqi Plan Youth Edition. Muja's early awakening to observe the sunrise and the honing of his ear power while driving sheep is part of his plan to accumulate divine energy. The Muja Qi training plan refers to the cultivation of soul power. Muja had asked Yang Yuning a long time ago in a cute way about how soul masters practice. Yang Yuning also doted on this 6-year-old younger brother, so she told Muja and even took out her cultivation manual for Muja to read. At that time, Muja felt that the cultivation method of Douluo continent was similar to the description of internal skills in previous lives, both of which involved meditating on the dantian to gather the sense of qi and then allowing it to move along certain meridians. This did not involve the use of martial souls, and the original work did not mention which Soul Master Academy's cultivation manual stated that martial souls should be used for cultivation. The cultivation methods on Douluo continent are also similar to those of Xiaogang, but their efficiency is not as high as Tang San's Xiaogang. Although this has caused a lot of confusion for Muja, it has also strengthened some of his previous speculations that innate soul power is not generated with the awakening of martial souls, but is gradually cultivated by humans. The reason why the innate soul power varies when the martial soul awakens is because different people have different qualifications, and their efficiency in absorbing energy also varies. Although Douluo continent world is made of fantasy floor tiles, it is also fantasy, and its spiritual energy concentration is still much higher than that of ordinary martial arts worlds. A person with high qualifications can accumulate some soul power through passive breathing even without actively practicing for 6 years. The higher the qualification, the more soul power they can accumulate, and the higher their innate soul power. Moreover, Muja inferred that the awakening of each person's martial soul is not only related to their own bloodline, but also crucial for postnatal nourishment. Just like the famous Xiaogang in the original work. The awakened martial soul is clearly the bright holy dragon, but due to insufficient nourishment, it degenerates into Luo Sanpao. There is also an obvious case of positive martial soul mutation in the original work, Ma Hongjun. As a commoner with awakened innate bloodline, Ma Hongjun's martial soul should be an ordinary grass chicken. However, Ma Hongjun himself has extremely high qualifications and absorbs more energy, which nourishes his martial soul into a top-level martial soul evil fire phoenix. Although he has defects, it is only due to the limitations of his innate bloodline. For example, why do people choose to awaken their martial souls at the age of 6 on Douluo continent? Muzha speculates that there may have been cases where the martial soul awakened before the age of 6 was not fully developed, and early awakening can easily cause negative mutations in the martial soul, just like premature infants. Awakening after the age of 6 may lead to the failure of awakening the martial soul. Just like a mother who is pregnant in October but has not yet given birth, either Neza or she is stillborn. The most suitable age for awakening martial souls was set at 6 years old by previous generations after numerous failed cases. When inferring these conclusions, Muzha attached great importance to the cultivation before the awakening of his martial soul, because his parents' martial souls were all blue-silver grass, and if nothing unexpected happened, his martial soul would also be blue-silver grass. If Muzha wants his martial soul to undergo a positive mutation, he can only work harder the day after tomorrow. Fortunately, Muzha has good qualifications, and his soul is even stronger due to the combination of 2 lifetimes. Muzha had previously observed Yang Yuning state during cultivation, and he could vaguely feel the spiritual state around him with his spiritual power at that time. Afterwards, he began to try to cultivate soul power. As described in Yang Yuning's Soul Master's Cultivation Manual, he crossed his knees carefully and meditated to gather qi. Due to the strong spiritual power, Muzha quickly felt the spiritual energy around his body and began to introduce them into his body from the top of the Baihui acupoint according to the route recorded in the manual, running through the meridians. However, because the route recorded in the Soul Master's Cultivation Manual is not very advanced, the efficiency of refining spiritual energy is indeed low. Muzha estimates that only 20% of spiritual energy is absorbed directly by the body, and about 5% of spiritual energy is re-overflowed from the body. There is nothing that can be done about this Muzha. Although there has been an explosion of online information and a lot of related content in Muzha's past life, who can guarantee authenticity? Even if someone guarantees it is true, Muzha will not try the law. Internal skill cultivation is not just a joke. A slight mistake can lead to serious consequences. As for letting others try the law, Muzha was also well educated in his past life. He would not harm innocent people and would only choose guilty ones. But who would let a child under the age of 6 expose him to criminals and conduct experiments on them? So currently, the path of improving soul power cultivation cannot be taken. Without finding a way to restore himself and ensure that modifying the cultivation path is worry-free, Muzha can only explore another path. He has strong spiritual power and can catch a lot of spiritual energy. He also refines spiritual energy and allows it to circulate in the meridians, only requiring a portion of his spiritual power to be separated. In this way, Muzha directly separated a portion of his spiritual power to refine and compress spiritual energy, while the remaining portion purified and compressed spiritual energy, and then refined and absorbed the high-quality spiritual energy after purification and compression. Since we cannot increase the quantity, let's directly improve the quality. Despite this, Muzha still had more spiritual power, so he used this part of his spiritual power to control the diffusion of spiritual energy, allowing it to only disperse inside the body and be absorbed by the body, rather than spreading outside the body. This is Muzha's Qi Training Plan Youth Edition 1.0 version. Later, Yang Yuning's outstanding talent led her to be specially recruited by Tianshui College, one of the 5 major elemental colleges, and received special training. Muzha also obtained a more advanced soul power cultivation route from her, which updated his qi cultivation plan to version 2.0. Mu Zhe is still practicing version 2.0. Calculating the time, it should be around 10 o'clock now. Aunt Lu should be stewing fish with Roger and practicing her soul power for another hour and a half before going back and disturbing their two worlds. Having made up his mind, Mu Zhe sat down directly on the ground and began practicing soul power. The day of awakening the martial soul is getting closer and closer, and Mu Zhe must seize the time to try to make the martial soul mutate a bit. After all, the rules of this world are like this. The awakened martial soul directly affects personal future development. Before there is no absolute power to break the rules, Mu Zhe can only rely on the rules to seek strength in himself. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Endless Levels of Body Control. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Endless Levels of Body Control. An hour and a half later, Mu Zhe finished his cultivation. Although Mu Zhe found it strange that Douluo continent used hours, minutes, and seconds as the timing unit, he was not too conflicted after all, as he was also accustomed to using them. The only thing that left Mu Zhe speechless was the means of transportation and communication in this world. For a world where soul guidance technology can develop to include streetlights, projection screens, and even space storage equipment, transportation actually uses carriages, and communication uses flying pigeons to transmit messages. How dare you believe this? While chasing back the sheep, Mu Zhe roasted at the science and technology tree of Douluo continental world is really absurd. Not long after, he arrived at the sheep pen next to the village and skillfully drove the sheep back to the pen. Mu Zhe began to let go and gallop like a horse, and only then did he start to restrain himself in the village. In no time, Mu Zhe arrived at his doorstep and smelled the aroma of blue scale fish soup from a long distance. It must be Aunt Lu's craftsmanship. The whole village is full of fragrance. When I first came back, I saw the children on our front street discussing which restaurant made such delicious food. Fortunately, it wasn't Roger who made it, otherwise the smell in the village wouldn't be like this. I guess those children should cover their noses then. Mu Zhe said happily as soon as he entered the door. Go to one side, you stinking boy, what I did is so exaggerated. Blushed and said with shame. Lu Xueqing was amused and burst into laughter on the side. The three of them chatted and laughed for a while, and the fish soup needed to be stewed for a while longer. Mu Zhe then went upstairs with great vision. In a small study upstairs, Yang Yuning was carefully looking at the notes that Mu Zhe had organized in the past few days. This study was specially prepared by Mu Zhe, and before Mu Zhe arrived, there was no study at Roger's house. There is a small bookshelf on the inner side of the study, and there are not many books on the bookshelf, only a dozen or so, all of which were borrowed by Yang Yuning from the library of Tianshui University. Because Mu Zhe is coquettish and cute, she often asks her questions about the Soul Master realm, and some of them she can't answer. Therefore, every time Yang Yuning comes back from vacation, she simply goes to the college library to borrow some books, all of which are about Soul Master cultivation or Soul Beast introductions. Put it on this bookshelf when you come back, and return the previous batch of books that were placed here when you return to school. Compared to the number of items brought back by Yang Yuning each time, there are more and larger items on the bookshelf, including some notes and speculations written by Mu Zhe in his daily life, as well as some insights from his exercise. Seeing that Yang Yuning was looking seriously, Mu Zhe restrained his breath and slowly walked around Yang Yuning's back, then, Yuning sister. Ah! Yang Yuning was mesmerized when she was suddenly startled by Mu Zhe and shouted out loud. Ha ha ha, Sister Reigning, your vigilance is also too poor, and your expression. Ha ha hiccup. Before he could finish speaking, Mu Zhe couldn't help but laugh again. Privacy dishes, Mu Zhe. Are you itching again? Yang Yuning became angry and embarrassed, quickly got up and chased after Mu Zhe, clenching her small fists and vowing to avenge the fright just now. Thanks to her focused analysis of the feasibility of Mu Zhe's theories and conjectures just now, she was afraid that Mu Zhe would encounter any further problems in his cultivation. The result was good, this little bastard had no conscience and actually scared her. She was really scared too. Just now, she thought her martial soul had flown out. Why become a sister if this revenge is not avenged? This kid still wants to ride on her head and act recklessly. No, I've been bullying him all along, and I can still make him turn over. Xiao Muzhe, look, sister, this will let you know what bloodline suppression is. Thinking to herself, Yang Yuning's movements were a bit faster. But soon, Yang Yuning discovered a fact that she couldn't catch Mu Zhe. I saw it in this small study. Mu Zhe was as agile as a monkey in his movements, even though he was only separated by a wooden table. Yang Yuning couldn't even touch Mu Zhe's clothes. Although Yang Yuning did not unleash her soul power, based solely on the physical fitness of her great soul master, she should be more agile than Mu Zhe and should be easily caught. Yang Yuning tried to catch Mu Zhe again, but this time she used a bit of soul power and her movements were more agile, but she still couldn't catch Mu Zhe. So Yang Yuning stopped and looked at Mu Zhe across the desk, whose face was not red or panting, and asked, "How did you do it?" Seeing Yang Yuning asking him seriously, Mu Zhe also stopped his thought of continuing to play. Usually, Mu Zhe is not so childish and playful. After all, he has had experiences as an adult. Although he was reborn as a child again, influenced by his body in a much younger mindset, he would not be so playful. This time, it was just a small revenge for Yang Yuning who had been bullying him based on his sister's identity before. Because of control over the body, sister reigning, did you feel cramped just now? Although you could catch me with just one burst of force, if you burst out with all your might, it would also cause damage to things in this room. Even if you think you want to burst out with all your might, you could hurt me if you can't stop. Playing back and forth, causing trouble back and forth, Mu Zhe is still very reliable in his serious business. He answered Yang Yuning's question succinctly and clearly, while also pointing out Yang Yuning's predicament just now. Yang Yuning is not a fool either. With a reminder from Mu Zhe, she understood her current weakness. Looking back just now, Mu Zhe repeatedly jumped horizontally on the desk, surprisingly not touching any object on the desk. And as she was spinning around the table, she could easily bump into the corner of the table or hit the nearby bookshelf without paying attention. Although Mu Zhe also has the advantage of small body size, it can still be seen that her level of control over her body is far less than Mu Zhe's. Yang Yuning is not only not stupid, but also very intelligent. She immediately realized that improving her control over her body has a great impact on practical combat. How to improve control? Yang Yuning had no idea for a moment, and she had also practiced Mu Zhe's previous fitness plan. However, she prefers to practice fitness exercises that incorporate yoga movements. For the extremely strict posture requirements of the horse stab, she stopped practicing until halfway through. Because when practicing the Zhemabu, Mu Zhe often pointed out her posture mistakes, making her feel like she didn't have the dignity of being a sister and didn't practice anymore. In order to regain her dignity, she also found an opportunity to teach Mu Zhe a lesson. Although she doesn't often practice the Zhemabu, she also knows that this fitness method mainly focuses on fitness and practicing the stability of the lower body and the balance of the body, and the efficacy of fitness exercises is mainly to strengthen the body and improve body coordination. These two can help improve physical control to some extent, but it is difficult to achieve the relaxed and natural feeling like Mu Zhe just now. There must be a technique specifically designed to practice mastery at Mu Zhe's place. It seems that this is another invention crafted by Mu Zhe. Alas, my younger brother is too outstanding and not good at all. He has no achievements as a sister. It seems that we must hit our younger brother as soon as possible, otherwise we won't be able to fight at any time. It's only been a year now, and she can't catch this little monkey anymore, let alone have a chance in the future. Without the art of mind reading, Mu Zhe had no idea what Yang Yuning was thinking now. Seeing her reflection on her face, I thought she was thinking about how to improve her body control. Muzha decided not to disturb her for now, just in case she could come up with a method that was different from what he currently applies. I don't know, what Yang Yuning is thinking now is completely different from what he thinks. Yang Yuning's mind is now filled with regret for not bullying him more before and giving him the authority of his sister. It's too late to establish now. That's it, I can't control my blood anymore, I'll be one head shorter in front of Muzha in the future. Research system, Yang Yuning mourned in her heart, but remained calm on the surface. She watched as Muzha played with the objects she had messed up before tidying them up. After thinking for a moment, she asked Muzha, how can I improve my body's control? When Muzha heard Yang Yuning ask him, he thought she had given up her thoughts and didn't care. If you want to know how to improve your body control, you need to first understand what it means to control your body, replied casually. Based on my current knowledge accumulation, I divide controlling the body into 4 layers of meaning. The first layer is the simplest body control, which mainly involves controlling the limbs, improving their flexibility, coordination, and so on. The fitness exercises you practice are a method of practicing body control for this layer. The second layer I refer to as power control, which mainly involves mastering the power within the body, including physical and soul power. I have also mastered some effective methods for controlling the body at this level. I have recorded and organized them, and I will bring them to you. Speaking, Muzha walked to the bookshelf and found the notes on the cover that read, Power Control Exercise 2.0, and handed them to Yang Yuning. Then, Muzha continued, the third layer, which I call cellular control, is to control every cell of oneself, and to control the physiological activities of each cell at high and deep levels. The fourth layer is genetic control, which involves mastering one's own genes and even modifying one's own genes. Of course, to achieve these latter 2 layers, one needs to reach a certain level and knowledge to support themselves. Currently, I have only proposed 2 concepts. I even feel that when it comes to being labeled as Douluo, I may not be able to start practicing controlling cells, let alone delving deeper into controlling genes. After speaking these words, Muzha found the air exceptionally quiet. He turned his head to look at Yang Yuning and found her staring blankly at him with her notes. Muzha patted his forehead, and it was a familiar scene. A long time ago, Muzha had taught Yang Yuning some lessons. Whenever he delved deeper or touched upon some modern knowledge, Yang Yuning would start to daydream like this. Then, when she asked what she had just talked about, she would only shake her head and ask 3 questions without knowing. Whenever this happens, Muzha can't help but curse her for being stupid, and then she will be caught and scolded by Yang Yuning, who is furious. Just like now, Yang Yuning is thinking, what am I doing? I just want to know how to practice controlling my body, and he has been teaching me a lot. What should I do? But this time it flipped over, Yang Yuning couldn't catch him anymore, and finally didn't have to be beaten anymore. Thinking of this, Muzha couldn't help but laugh and shook his hand in front of Yang Yuning with a deadly gesture. Yang Yuning's originally dull gaze suddenly showed a bright and innocent expression of successful strategy, and her empty right hand suddenly grabbed the paw in front of her. When Muzha saw Yang Yuning's gaze, he knew it was over. It was too late to retract his dying hand. At such a close distance, even if he reacted in time, he couldn't avoid it. After all, there is a difference in physical fitness. A 12-year-old soul master, a child who has not yet awakened his martial soul and only practiced for 2.5 years at the age of 6, and a child who is not yet a baby, how can he avoid it? As expected, Yang Yuning grabbed Muzha's dog paw. Stinky little brother, let's see how you run this time. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Douluo Gregorian Year January 1st. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Douluo Gregorian Year January 1st. The subsequent development, as expected by everyone. Yang Yuning violently pounded Muzha's dog head, of course, with a playful nature. Yang Yuning didn't use much force, and Muzha's rough skin and thick flesh didn't fight back, allowing Yang Yuning to beat him. In Muzha's heart, he still respects Yang Yuning, the sister. Regardless of whether Lu Xueqing and Roger succeed or not, Muzha believes that Yang Yuning is his own biological sister. In his past life, Muzha was the eldest in the family and had two younger sisters below him. He has always taken care of the little one and has never experienced being taken care of as a little one. In this life, there is an older sister who takes care of him, which Muzha cherishes even more. Although she is not his own sister, she often beats him. Let's get to the point. After playing with Yang Yuning for a while, Muzha began to teach her how to practice and control her strength. I can only see that the records in Strength Control Exercise 2.0 are mainly divided into two categories: physical strength exercises and soul strength exercises. Physical strength exercises include paper tying, drawing, and catching fish. Soul power exercises include peeling eggs, stepping on water, and climbing walls. At first glance, Yang Yuning thought that Muzha had taken the wrong notes when she looked at the names of these practice projects, but upon closer inspection, she realized that each one had its own tricks. First of all, when it comes to tying paper, the method summarized by Muzha is to first attach the paper to the tofu and then use a silver needle to tie the paper until it is transparent and does not damage the tofu. During the initial practice, it is possible to cover a single piece of paper and gradually increase the thickness to increase the difficulty of the exercise, in order to improve the subtle control of strength and movement. Drawing requires people to hold the tail of a long gun with one hand, and then control the gun head to draw on the leaves. In the initial practice, the long gun can be shorter and lighter, and the leaves can be picked larger. Drawing only requires drawing simple circles. Then gradually increase the difficulty of the practice and choose heavier or longer spears to draw more complex patterns. This is an exercise to change the direction of force action. Catching fish is literally probing the hand to catch fish, but Muzha added a practice goal, which is to reduce water splashes. Each time, the goal is to reduce water splashes based on catching fish. The smaller the splashes caused by each probing, the more precise and gentle the control of strength. Practice reaching the point where there are no splashes and only ripples when catching fish with your hands. The next step is to practice reducing the ripples. Then let's talk about peeling eggs, which means using soul power to peel eggs without touching them with your hands, based on peeling off the outer shell without damaging the inner eggs. In the early stages of practice, use cooked eggs, and later use raw eggs to peel. The same standard is to break the shell without breaking the membrane. The main practice is the subtle control of soul power. The later steps of stepping on water and climbing walls are more inclined towards the use of soul power, and can also be used as a transitional stage for practicing soul power control. The difficulty of these two is much simpler compared to peeling eggs. Both are using soul power to create a vortex on the soles of the feet, but the former creates a momentum while the latter creates a suction force. I suggest you practice controlling your soul power first, starting with stepping on water and climbing trees, Muzha suggested in a voice after seeing Yang Yuning finish. Why? Yang Yuning had just finished reading these layers of planning for strength control exercises, which broadened her horizons. At the same time, she once again admired her younger brother, who was 6 years younger. Upon hearing Muzha's suggestion, I couldn't figure out the reason for it, so I asked. Because the practice of controlling soul power is relatively simple, soul power is different from physical power. You do not have an intuitive feeling of physical power, and you cannot directly feel the amount of force used. On the contrary, you have an intuitive feeling of soul power. You can directly feel the amount of soul power used, and the relative difficulty will be lower. This is one of them. Secondly, practicing the control of soul power can greatly enhance your current combat abilities, as your soul power is stronger than your physical strength. The reason why you were asked to practice water walking and tree climbing first is also based on these two reasons. These two exercises have lower difficulty, but they will make your use of soul power more diverse. Starting with simple exercises, you will find that your attention and even mental strength are increasing during the practice process, and it will be easier to practice in more difficult exercises. You can't become fat by taking a bite, you need to gradually and slowly. Mu Zhi patiently explained to Yang Yuning. Yang Yuning nodded, and Mu Zhi explained it very thoroughly. She gladly accepted it and said, "Okay, then I'll practice walking in the water and climbing the wall first. Well, after finishing dinner, I'll demonstrate to you the items I'm currently practicing for controlling physical strength. Soul power can only be practiced by you, because I haven't practiced those before, so I can't help you," said Mu Zhi. I don't know if it's because he hasn't awakened his martial soul. Although Mu Zhi can clearly feel the soul power he has cultivated in the past 2 years, he just can't control his soul power to go out of the body. Whenever he controls his soul power to go out of the body, it automatically disperses into the air. He can only use his soul power to enhance himself now. However, based on the information he knew in his past life, Mu Zhi speculated that it was not related to the awakening of his martial soul, but rather that his soul power cultivation had not reached a certain level. Just like cultivating internal skills or fighting spirit, if you haven't reached a certain level, you won't be able to perform detached attacks if your internal strength or fighting spirit quality is not enough. The original work of Douluo Continent also does not mention which soul warrior can perform soul power detached attacks. They, who have not yet obtained soul skills, can only summon the soul power of the martial soul to act on it during battles. So Mu Zhi is not in a hurry to practice soul power control now, but rather to cultivate and accumulate soul power without delay. He will practice soul power control after becoming a soul master. His current focus on controlling his body is on controlling physical strength. It has been 2 years since I started practicing, and thanks to his golden fingers, naturally strong spiritual power, it has begun to show results. It is still a piece of cake to guide Yang Yuning, a beginner. Okay. Yang Yuning was also very straightforward, and she showed a positive attitude towards the good thing that could improve herself, happily agreeing. Perhaps when it comes to actual practice and being scolded for being foolish by Mu Zhi, it will be another scene. At this moment, Mu Zhi's ears moved and his keen hearing made him hear that the fish soup below was ready. Mu Zhi stood up and signaled to Yang Yuning that it was time to go down for dinner. "Let's go, Aunt Lu and the others have also prepared the food. Let's go down and help serve the dishes first. Let's practice in the afternoon." Coming, Yang Yuning stood up and followed Mu Zhi downstairs. The two of them arrived downstairs, and Lu Xueqing also prepared the meal. Roger went to the wine cellar to get the wine. The two of them went into the kitchen to help serve food and vegetables. The dishes are ready, and the wine is also here. A family of 4 happily enjoyed a meal. After dinner, Mu Zhi was pulled away by Yang Yuning to practice power control, while Lu Xueqing stayed at Roger's house for a while before returning home. After helping Yang Yuning practice for half an hour, Mu Zhi returned home and started taking a nap. After finishing lunch, he took a half-hour break and then took a 1-hour nap, which was his unchanging habit since awakening his past life memories. After all, he is still a child and doesn't have enough sleep. What should he do if he doesn't grow taller in the future? He was only 1.75 meters tall in his past life, which made him deeply resentful. How could such unique conditions not grow to 1.85 meters in a lifetime? Of course, this is just one reason, and another reason is to restore mental energy. Since waking up in the morning, Mu Zhi has been in a highly focused state of mind to complete those exercise plans. Moderate sleep after lunch can not only relieve fatigue but also enhance mental strength. In the afternoon, after lunch break, Mu Zhi, who was full of energy, came to the study to start reading the books brought back by Yang Yuning. Thanks to Yang Yuning, otherwise Mu Zhi would not have had access to these books about soul masters and soul beasts. Although Roger is wealthy now, he has no access to books about soul master cultivation. The upper-class figures in Douluo Continent have blocked these books very well, and without a certain background, they cannot have access to these books. Although Soul Master Academy is relatively open, those knowledge are only open to students. Yang Yuning was still able to borrow these books from the library due to her high talent. If a student with low talent wants to borrow it for a try. These are all things that were not described in the original work and were only learned by Mu Zhi after he arrived. In his past life, he lived in a peaceful and open society, and Mu Zhi only learned about the scenes of feudal society from historical books. Although he sympathized, his feelings were not deep. Now that he has entered a world with such a feudal social background, Mu Zhi has truly felt the common people in such a society. Deep water and hot water. Ha! Not only. In the eyes of those nobles or soul masters, the commoners in this world are completely different species from them, and they are the people. And civilians may not even be as good as cows in their eyes. The cow working in the field has died, and when the nobles get angry, they may let the family working with the cow be buried with them. The key is that neither the laws of the heavenly Dou Empire or the Star Luo Empire will impose any punishment on such a matter. Their law is entirely serving the nobility and soul masters. Killing civilians by soul masters is not illegal. It is not illegal for nobles with titles to kill civilians. Only when both parties involved are nobles or soul masters, the empire will send people to judge. Not to mention the distance, Lin Er, a sheep farmer from the east end of the village, was one of the most responsive people to Roger's call to raise sheep and had a good relationship with him. A few days ago, while selling sheep in the city, a sheep accidentally ran into a passing nobleman. Lin Er quickly knelt down to apologize, but the nobleman didn't even listen. On the street, he let the guards beat Lin Er to death. Afterwards, the nobleman heard that Prince Suiking had come to the village and sent someone to send 10 gold coins as a sealing fee. If Shueqing River has never been to the village, it is estimated that there will not even be a sealing fee. 10 gold coins, just a 10-month subsidy for the soul master, broke the backbone of a family. Lin Er's parents passed away early, and there was also a wife and a 2-year-old child at home. His wife was only 16 years old, and when she heard the bad news, she panicked and followed her husband's advice to remarry. So, a family that had just started to improve and wanted to enjoy a happy life suddenly encountered an accident, and the family was destroyed like this. Lin Er's body was brought back by Roger, and that day Mu Zhi saw a look on Roger's face that had never appeared before. Sadness, anger, and despair. After helping arrange Lin Er's funeral, Roger originally wanted to support Lin Er's family on his own, but his wife decided to remarry, and Roger didn't say anything more. Returning home, Roger, who had always had a good sleep quality, suffered from insomnia in the middle of the night and sat at the dining table drinking the entire jar of wine. Mu Zhi didn't stop him from listening upstairs, and he stayed up all night. That night he made a decision. Fuck the nobility. He will definitely overthrow all of this and establish a new order in the future. He thought of a night-long plan for it. The next day, Mu Zhi casually carried Roger, who was drinking from the table, back to his bedroom and continued practicing as usual, as if nothing had happened. But only Mu Zhi knew that he had changed, and his thoughts had changed. Previously, his thoughts were biased towards Buddhism and he did not have a desire to compete for dominance. What exercise plans to do is just for a better future life. And now, he has decided to become stronger, step by step, to become the strongest in the world, and then cleanse the ugliness of this world. In the first year of the Douluo calendar, a young man made a wish to turn his hand over to the clouds and cover his hand with rain. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Awakening of Authentic Martial Souls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Awakening of Authentic Martial Souls. After reading Yang Yuning's newly brought back Introduction to Plants, Souls and Beasts for 2 hours, Mu Zhi finally put down the book. It's 3:30 now, it's time for him to practice soul power in the afternoon. Mu Zhi summarized through nearly 2 years of soul power cultivation experiments that soul power cultivation is not sustainable for long-term cultivation. The efficiency will increase after a period of time, and the effect will be better when the qi and blood are more active. The reason behind this is that soul power cultivation is essentially a process of refining the unowned spiritual energy in the air for personal use. The specific way to transform the unowned spiritual energy into one's own is to let the spiritual energy run through the meridians in the body. During this process, Muzha observed that spiritual energy would blend with the blood in his body, so that when he lost control of his spiritual power, spiritual energy would not dissipate in his body, as it had already merged with his own blood to form soul power. And different meridian operation routes result in different spiritual energy refining efficiency and attributes. Because the human body is a complex structure, different meridians have different attributes and functions, resulting in different attributes of soul power. In addition, a person's own bloodline can also affect the attributes of soul power, as soul power is a combination of spiritual energy and blood energy. The intuitive manifestation of the bloodline of the people in Douluo continent is the martial soul, so different martial souls have different soul power attributes that soul masters cultivate. Because it requires combining one's own blood and energy, long-term cultivation can also affect oneself. There is also evidence in the original work that Tang San once said that it is not advisable to practice soul power for a long time. So Muzha arranged his soul power cultivation time reasonably for himself. The morning wake-up period, the morning exercise period, and the afternoon reading period. During these 3 periods, one's own health is sufficient, and proper cultivation will not consume oneself, and the efficiency is also high. Especially after completing the exercise plan in the morning, one's health is particularly active. Time passes like a white horse passing by a gap. The day for testing Muzha's cultivation achievements is coming soon. Tomorrow, a deacon from the martial soul hall will come to awaken the eligible children in the village. For the past 3 months, Muzha has been diligently following his exercise plan every day, hoping to make a remarkable breakthrough at the martial soul awakening ceremony tomorrow. As early as that afternoon 3 months ago, Muzha felt that his soul power cultivation had reached a bottleneck, and there was no further increase in soul power. But he still hasn't given up on soul power cultivation, instead he values it more. Because he knows that now is the best stage for soul power to nourish the martial soul, and it is also the easiest source to enhance the martial soul in this stage. The soul power cultivated during this period will no longer increase to the elixir field, but will be divided into 2 parts. Absorbed by the body and stored by the martial soul. Both will improve the origin of the martial soul, but the soul power directly stored by the martial soul is more efficient, and the part absorbed by the body has little impact on one's own blood vessels, reflecting a negligible improvement in the origin of the martial soul. In Muzha's opinion, there are 3 ways to enhance martial soul without using immortal grass. 1 is the nourishment of postnatal nourishment and soul power when the martial soul is not awakened. Secondly, when hunting soul rings, use similar soul beast origins to enhance the martial soul origin. The third is the cultivation after reaching the bottleneck of reaching 10, allowing the martial soul to refine and store excess soul power. The relationship between these 3 is that 1 is greater than 2, and 2 is greater than 3. The first method is particularly important because at this time, the martial soul has not yet awakened, and nourishing it is more efficient. In addition, the soul power stored in the martial soul will be instantly increased when the soul master obtains a soul ring, which will cause the soul power stored in the martial soul that has not yet been refined into the original source to be fed back. Only then did we have the theory of a certain master, Xiaogang. The soul master has reached the bottleneck, and the soul power cultivated by the martial soul before obtaining the soul ring will not disappear and will be displayed after obtaining the soul ring. It has to be said that this master's theory is really rough. It is completely based on the sum of books and cases, without any ideas of his own, and he cannot even analyze the data. He would rather analyze the data more and find that the soul power highlighted by the soul master after obtaining the soul ring does not match the soul power he cultivates, and is missing a part. Xiaogang's other theories are mostly a summary of previous knowledge, and his only innovation is that plant martial souls can also absorb the soul rings of animal soul beasts, or animal martial souls can also absorb the soul rings of plant soul beasts, which is still useless. It can be absorbed, but after absorption, the improvement of the martial soul origin is minimal due to the mismatch of the martial soul origin attributes. Even if the origin attributes conflict, the quality of the martial soul will be reduced in the opposite direction. The blue-silver grass of Tang San in the original work would have been abandoned under the guidance of Xiaogang if it weren't for its profound origin as the blue-silver emperor. The theory in the article lacks innovation, or the innovative points are useless, which should be attributed to the fact that in his previous life, Xiaogang couldn't even handle his graduation thesis. The school will not issue him a degree certificate. In this world, on the contrary, those who truly study theories serve the sect or the royal family, and their achievements are not accessible to the public and their reputation is not well known. To make Xiaogang, who stole the achievements of others and publicly disclosed them in his own name, become a master. In fact, Mu Zhi should be grateful to Xiaogang for this. It was he who made those martial soul data public, allowing him to quickly understand martial souls. That's right, Mu Zhi has also read Xiaogang's theory of the 10 core competitiveness of martial souls, and often delves into it repeatedly. Of course, he is looking at the historical soul master data of the Martial Soul Hall and Blue Electric Tyrannosaurus Rex sect that are publicly available on it. And for the theories written by Xiaogang himself, he even took a glance at them and found them time-consuming. The limit of the first soul ring is 423 years. Who stipulated it? Is it the will of the world? Or God? There are no restrictions on either of these. Did Xiaogang, a great soul master, impose restrictions on you? What is the level of casual conversation? Isn't it obvious that the lifespan of soul rings is related to personal physical fitness and spiritual will? Mu Zhi can understand why Xiaogang chose to give a maximum soul ring lifespan. Because this can better demonstrate his prowess, he can become famous. After all, setting a maximum lifespan for the first soul ring is not a big deal. Xiaogang is completely desperate for fame. If it were purely for the sake of fame, Mu Zhi would not have much disgust towards Xiaogang. After all, there are many people in the world who pursue fame and fortune. And Xiaogang's identity and background make him particularly eager to pursue a good reputation to cover up the fact that although he comes from the Blue Electric Tyrannosaurus Rex lineage, his martial soul is indeed a waste. Mu Zhi can also understand that people who are extremely insecure often have such strong self-esteem, and confident people never care about these names. There are actually many people like this, and Mu Zhi can also treat them objectively. The main reason for his disgust towards Xiaogang is his contempt for those common soul masters. After reading so much data, could he not know that the first soul ring age of auxiliary soul masters is much lower than that of beast soul battle soul masters? Will he not associate the number of years a soul master can absorb soul rings with their martial soul and physical fitness? However, in order to become famous, he selectively hid these things and did not mention any of them in his conclusions. Xiaogang had no idea how much his actions would affect the soul masters who had no knowledge of them. If those soul masters without the guidance of advanced soul masters waste their physical fitness and really want to absorb the maximum soul rings as mentioned by Xiaogang, there is a high probability that they will explode and die. And these are often common soul masters. Even if his family came to argue with him afterwards, he could completely refute that the person was not genius enough, and his ultimate soul ring was prepared for genius. His actions fully reflect the contempt and indifference of the sect's soul masters towards ordinary soul masters. As long as it is not a common genius, he will not care much, he only cares about his reputation. In the later period, Tang San pressed the master's theory on the ground and rubbed it wildly, but Xiaogang did not consider changing it. In order to maintain the master's reputation, he would not admit his mistake at all. Serious class contradictions can be seen everywhere in this world, and even ordinary soul masters cannot believe that the masters, who treat them well in their eyes, are just tools to earn fame. The more Tianmuzhe sorted out these events, the more angry he became. The angrier he was, the calmer his mind became. He hid all this anger in his heart, waiting for one day to burn the whole world. A day passes quickly. In the early morning, the morning light was shining brightly. Sitting on the boulder, Muzhe opened his eyes, as if a dazzling light could compete with the morning light. Today is the first shock to Douluo continent, murmured Muzhe. After breakfast, Roger took Muzhe to the entrance of the Martial Soul Hall in the village. There were already several families waiting here, most of whom had awakened children of appropriate age. There are also several elderly people from the village who stop here to pay attention to these younger generations in the village. Thanks to Muzhe's village, it has become a star village around Tiando City. The deacon of the Martial Soul Hall will give priority to awakening the children in their village. The morning light was leisurely, dressed in white vigorous attire with a black cloak on the back. In the center of his chest, a young man with a fist-sized soul character stepped on the dew and came to Muzhe and his companions. As the village chief, Roger first approached the young man and exchanged greetings, saying, "Director Zhou, you've come so early this year. Have you eaten it before? If you haven't eaten it for a while, please have some hot pot lamb." Roger's name for Dean Zhou is Zhou Qingyu. Last year, he also came to the village to arrange the awakening ceremony, because the village has gained fame in recent years and Yang Yuning, who has already gained a genius reputation. Zhou Qingyu is not as arrogant as Su Yuntao in the original work when he first arrived at Shenghun village. He was also very easygoing and said to Roger, "Village Chief Luo, although I also want to try the famous Blue Creek braised lamb in Tiando City, I have a lot of work to do today. I have to go to 7 villages later. Let's reschedule." "Okay, then you're busy. This year, the children in the village will be left to you," Roger said without further courtesy. "Business matters." "Okay." Zhou Qingyu turned around and walked into the Martial Soul Hall with 11 children, including Muzhe. After the people stood still, Zhou Qingyu took out 2 things from his personal package, 6 black round stones and a shiny blue crystal ball. "Children, my name is Zhou Qingyu, a level 28 auxiliary soul master and a martial soul green jade bead. I am your guide. Now, I will awaken your martial souls one by one. Remember, no matter what happens later, don't panic and won't harm you." After speaking, he placed 6 black stones on the ground in a hexagonal shape and gestured for the first child on the right to stand among them. "Close your eyes and feel it carefully," Zhou Qingyu said as his eyes suddenly lit up and he whispered. The faint blue light first revealed from his martial soul, and his hands quickly shot it out. 6 faint green lights injected into the 6 black stones on the ground. Suddenly, a layer of golden light was released from the 6 stones, forming a light golden mask that enveloped the previous child. Martial Soul Blue Silver Grass, without soul power, next one. Martial Soul Blue Silver Grass. Next, Martial Soul Kitchen Knife. Out of 10 children, 9 awakened the Blue Silver Grass Martial Soul, and 1 awakened martial soul was a kitchen knife. 2 of them have soul power, 1 is the awakened kitchen knife martial soul, half-level soul power. The other is a girl with first-level soul power. The result did not exceed Muzhe's expectations. Most of the martial souls in Lanshi village were blue silver grass, so 9 out of 10 children awakened blue silver grass martial souls. The boy who awakened half a level of soul power, Muzhe remembers that his family opened a hot pot restaurant 2 years ago, and his family was relatively wealthy in Lanshi village. In recent years, he has eaten a lot of good food, and with sufficient nutrition, it is normal to have some soul power. On the contrary, it was the little girl with first-level soul power, whose family background in Lanshi village was not very wealthy. Gathering first-level soul power can only be said to be a natural talent for soul masters. Muzhe stood out, ranking last, and now it was finally his turn. From the beginning, Zhou Qingyu had higher expectations for Mu Zhe than other children. After all, he was tall and the first thing he saw standing among a group of children was him. In addition, Mu Zhe's cultivation in recent years has also made him appear particularly elegant, with a high appearance. With such outstanding external conditions, how could he awaken a better martial soul? Mu Zhe walked into the formation, feeling excited, but was once again suppressed by him. After all, it was time to test his achievements over the past 3 years, and Mu Zhe was also looking forward to what kind of answer sheet he would hand over. Soul power is certain. After all, Mu Zhe can truly feel the full soul power in the Dantian, designated as innate full soul power. What he is most worried about now is his martial soul. I don't know what it will mutate into. Will it directly awaken to become the blue-silver emperor? Watching Mu Zhe enter the formation and clench his fists, Zhou Qingyu thought he was nervous. He comforted him kindly and said, "Relax, don't be nervous, it's okay." Upon hearing this, Mu Zhe nodded, knowing that Zhou Qingyu had misunderstood his excitement, but sensing Zhou Qingyu's kindness, he still said, "Thank you." His body was gradually surrounded by the golden light, and Mu Zhe felt as warm and comfortable as a returning mother. He felt that as the golden light entered, something in his bloodline seemed to be reviving. The feeling became stronger and stronger, finally reaching a peak, and then erupted directly. Mu Zhe opened his right hand, and a blue-silver grass, with a body size significantly larger than the normal blue-silver grass soul burst out in his palm. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Is You, Blue-Silver King? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Is You, Blue-Silver King? Is this a variation of martial soul? Zhou Qingyu looked surprised. After all, he had just awakened the normal blue-silver grass martial soul for his 9 children. Mu Zhe's martial soul was clearly different from theirs. How could he not see that Mu Zhe's martial soul had mutated, and the situation should be positive? There is a limit to being blind. Mu Zhe also looked at his martial soul with a lot of emotion, both relieved and disappointed. The ultimate mutation of the martial soul proved that all his theories were correct, and his efforts were not in vain. But ultimately, he didn't awaken to become the blue-silver emperor. Mu Zhe sighed in his heart. His blue-silver grass martial soul has a body shape 10 times that of an ordinary blue-silver grass martial soul, and the silver lines on it are even more profound. Upon closer inspection, there is also a faint golden thread in the center, but overall, the lines are silver rather than gold. He admitted that he was greedy. After all, if he had awakened the blue-silver emperor directly, the road ahead would have been easier. However, it is not easy for him to nurture an ordinary blue-silver grass soul into the blue-silver king. He actually anticipated this result as well. After all, it's only 3 years, and if he recovers his memory 1 year earlier, he has absolute confidence in turning blue-silver grass into blue-silver emperor. Before Mu Zhe could continue to lament, Zhou Qingyu excitedly said, "Child, quickly test your soul power." Upon hearing this, Mu Zhe stopped thinking and reached out to place his hand on the crystal ball in front of him. Suddenly, his full soul power surged into it, and the blue crystal ball emitted a sparkling light. Innate full of soul power. Zhou Qingyu exclaimed excitedly. Although Mu Zhe can control the amount of soul power surge to control the level of innate soul power displayed on the crystal ball, he did not choose to hide clumsiness. He just wants to build his reputation. Since awakening Su Hui, I have been practicing for 3 years. The final result of Mu Zhe's answer sheet is the martial soul blue-silver king, with innate soul power at full level. Innate soul power, although the martial soul is mutated from the blue-silver grass, its power has also reached the level of a high-level martial soul. This is a peerless genius-level seedling. Zhou Qingyu was excited in his heart, and he also discovered a peerless genius-level seedling. If he could be brought into the martial soul hall, it would definitely be a great achievement. He will be able to walk much easier in the future. Thinking of this, he immediately extended an invitation to Mu Zhe. "Child, What's your name? Are you willing to join our martial soul hall? Uncle doesn't lie to you, your qualifications are very good. Uncle can guarantee you that joining the martial soul hall will definitely receive the best training in the whole continent. Zhou Qingyu squatted down, restrained his breath to appear more approachable, and then said seriously to Mu Zhe. Sorry, respected steward. I already have a teacher, so I cannot follow you to the martial soul hall. Mu Zhe shook his head and refused Zhou Qingyu's invitation. Although the martial soul hall played an important role in his plan, the time has not yet arrived and he is not suitable to join the martial soul hall at the moment. Do you have a teacher? Who is your teacher? Zhou Qingyu was surprised in his heart that even though Mu Zhe had just awakened, how could there be a teacher? Is it because the child didn't understand the situation and thought they were going to teach him how to read, so they already have a teacher? My teacher is my sister, the genius of our Lanxi village. Yang Yuning. She is so amazing, even the crown prince praises my sister as a genius. I want to learn from her. Mu Zhe decisively took out Yang Yuning to top the bag, with a particularly proud expression on his face. Actually, I feel quite proud inside. My sister, Yang Yuning, you're amazing. I taught it. Mu Zhe was not wrong when he said that Yang Yuning was his teacher. His soul power cultivation was initially learned by Yang Yuning. They are teachers to each other. Yang Yuning. Zhou Qingyu knew about Yang Yuning, and even more so, she was favored by the vice dean of Tianshui College, a soul saint, and became her disciple. Part of his courtesy towards Roger comes from Yang Yuning. Now Mu Zhe looks like he only recognizes his sister, and his persuasion is not very effective. Ah, Zhou Qingyu sighed, it seemed that his great achievements were about to be ruined. Stepping out of the martial soul hall, Mu Zhe was in a great mood. 3 years of hard work were not in vain, and the path of cultivation afterwards also had a good start. For a moment, Mu Zhe was full of hope for the future. Just like a young man full of energy and confidence, the future is promising. Upon learning that Mu Zhe had awakened his advanced martial soul and still possessed innate soul power, Roger happily arranged to invite the whole village to a meal. The people in the village were also very happy to hear that another genius had emerged in the village. In this era, there was little defense capability in rural areas, and incidents like Mu Zhe's biological parents being killed by evil soul masters often occurred in rural areas. Now there is another genius in the village, which means they will be safer in the future. How can they not be happy? Everyone was discussing how to celebrate, and finally unanimously decided to hold a bonfire party in the largest square in the village in front of the martial soul hall. The whole village, regardless of age, participated one after another, and the villagers congratulated Mu Zhe and Roger. The larger ones raised their glasses and toasted directly, while the smaller ones would come running to clink glasses with Mu Zhe with juice. This night is a carnival night belonging to Lanxi village. The villagers are celebrating the emergence of genius in the village and the tremendous progress made in the past few years. Nowadays, the income of Lanxi village has increased by more than 10 times compared to 3 years ago. Taking this opportunity, the villagers have expressed their joy in their hearts. Roger was also exceptionally happy tonight, and he never refused to drink. Every time he drank directly, he had not yet reached the halfway point of the party when he fell drunk. He had to spend time with Mu Zhe and Lu Xueqing to pick him up halfway. It is worth mentioning that Roger, after drinking halfway and speaking the truth, finally had a showdown with Lu Xueqing. The whole Lu Xueqing didn't know whether to be angry or happy, and couldn't laugh or cry for a moment. When he got home, Roger held on to Mu Zhe and said a lot of things to prevent him from leaving. The overall meaning was that he was very happy that Mu Zhe could awaken his innate full soul power. He knew that Mu Zhe had always had ideas, and although he couldn't help Mu Zhe's future, he would always support Mu Zhe's choice with all his might. This morning, after the martial soul awakening ceremony, Zhou Qingyu learned that Mu Zhe was Roger's adopted son and began to pull Roger to persuade him to join the martial soul hall. Mu Zhe made a gesture to Roger at the back, asking him to refuse. Roger politely declined Zhou Qingyu, although he also thought it was good to enter the martial soul hall. He was more inclined to trust Mu Zhe's choice. Mu Zhe was moved in his heart, and he knew that Roger could only say these emotional words after drinking alcohol. He didn't usually express his true feelings like this. Although Mu Zhe majored in pharmacology in his past life, he also read a lot of traditional Chinese medicine as a reference. He did not understand the essence of traditional Chinese medicine in his past life, but in this life, he cultivated soul power and personally experienced the vastness and profoundness of traditional Chinese medicine. Mu Zhe directly stimulated Roger's acupoints with soul power, causing him to vomit all the wine, and then left Roger to be taken care of by Lu Xueqing. I ran out on my own. He plans to go home tonight and spend the night practicing on the giant stone he usually cultivates. He has already explained to Lu Xueqing that he was invited by the big guy from Qianjie to stay at home and stay up late. He won't come back tonight. Just as he awakened his martial soul, he was pulled by Roger to fill the village with strings without proper research. In the afternoon, he had to prepare for the bonfire party. It was only now that Mu Zhe had the opportunity to study his martial soul thoroughly. The night is seductive. Tonight, there are people singing, people being romantic, and Mu Zhe practicing hard. But even the happiest time will eventually flow away. At 2 o'clock in the morning, it is the deepest hour of the night. Jinwu hasn't woken up yet, while Yutu is still pounding medicine. At this moment, Mu Zhe opened his eyes. I saw an uncontrollable joy in his eyes, which shows that these few hours of research have been quite rich. In fact, it is indeed the case. After a night of research, Mu Zhe found that he still underestimated the degree of variation of his martial soul. His blue-silver king's martial soul is only a trace away from transforming into a blue-silver emperor. In addition, he also discovered that his martial soul had mutated into a direction that would not have been enhanced by blue-silver grass, and its essence should be to enhance spiritual power. Mu Zhe analyzed that this should be influenced by his strong spiritual power, which led to the mutation of the martial soul in this direction. If Mu Zhe guessed correctly, the direction of the variation of the martial soul may be varied, but it should be influenced by the master's talent and personality. Whether it is correct or not, Mu Zhe is still uncertain and needs to see more cases to verify later. What is more important now is to determine whether the influence of the martial soul on himself is as he expected. To verify his hypothesis, Mu Zhe raised his right hand to form a sword finger, and then fiercely scratched the belly of his left index finger, creating a wound that looked like a real knife cut. The wound was very long and deep, almost half of my fingertips were cut off. The wound immediately began to bleed. Mu Zhe sealed the wound with soul power and no longer took any extra measures. After only 2 minutes, the wound began to itch. Mu Zhe knew that it was caused by the wound healing. Sure enough, half an hour passed and Mu Zhe felt the itching disappear, so he wiped off the blood scab. The wound has completely healed. It takes 7 or 8 days for an ordinary person's wound to heal, but it only took Mu Zhe half an hour to fully heal. I guess exactly right. Mu Zhe said happily. The most prominent characteristic of blue-silver grass is its tenacious vitality. As the blue-silver king, Mu Zhe's martial soul also possesses this characteristic, and this characteristic is even more powerful, making Mu Zhe's vitality particularly strong. This is reflected in his body, where his cell activity is 5 times higher than before awakening the martial soul. If Mu Zhe's martial soul advanced to blue-silver emperor, the cell activity would be enhanced 10 times before awakening the martial soul. As for why Tang San's martial soul in the original work did not reflect this characteristic, it can only be said that he believed that Xiaogang had taken the wrong path. When his martial soul was blue-silver grass, his vitality was far less powerful than Mu Zhe's blue-silver king, so he did not show any specificity. Later, due to the use of toxins and resilient control roots to absorb the essence of various poisonous soul beasts, the life characteristics of blue-silver grass were completely abolished. The reason why he was able to awaken to become the Blue-Silver Emperor was because his mother, the previous Blue-Silver Emperor, used her power to ask several major Blue-Silver kings to donate some of their roots to fill in his awakening. Even so, the life characteristics of Tang San's Blue-Silver Emperor's martial soul could not be regained. Even his soul ring skill, which can heal himself, only used the power of the Blue-Silver Emperor to absorb the vitality of the surrounding Blue-Silver grass to restore his injuries. It can be said that his Blue-Silver Emperor martial soul was directly defeated by training, without fully utilizing the advantages of his top-level martial soul. Some things need to be in a certain position to understand, such as the power of the Blue-Silver Emperor. Mu Zhi also deeply studied his martial soul, the Blue-Silver King, to understand. Blue-Silver grass can be said to be spread throughout the Douluo continent, and the Blue-Silver grass clan has a special ethnic consciousness. The Blue-Silver grass of the entire continent all respect one Blue-Silver grass, and that one Blue-Silver grass is the Blue-Silver Emperor of the Blue-Silver grass clan. So the Blue-Silver Emperor can only exist at the same time, even if there are two Blue-Silver grasses that have reached the 100,000 grade level, only the stronger one can become the authority of the Blue-Silver Emperor to govern the Blue-Silver grass family, and the other, even if it has transformed into a golden silk Blue-Silver grass after 100,000 years, can only be called the Blue-Silver King. And the Blue-Silver King, like the enfeoffment king among humans, has its own territory to control the Blue-Silver grass of its own territory, but it is also the priority of the Blue-Silver King's authority, and the subordinate authority of the Blue-Silver King's authority. When giving orders at the same time, even the Blue-Silver grass of the Blue-Silver King's own territory will still obey the instructions of the Blue-Silver King first. Overall, the Blue-Silver Emperor is more like a position than a realm of promotion for the Blue-Silver grass soul beast, because there will always be a Blue-Silver Emperor in the world. Even if there is no Blue-Silver grass reaching 100,000 grades in this era, the highest and strongest Blue-Silver grass will still gain the power of the Blue-Silver Emperor and control the entire Blue-Silver Emperor family. Now, as the martial soul of Mu Zhi, who is close to the 100,000 grade Blue-Silver King, the surrounding Blue-Silver grasses automatically become his subjects, and he can naturally perceive the scene from the perspective of these Blue-Silver grasses, just like Tang San in the original work who awakened the Blue-Silver Emperor and sensed the enemy through the Blue-Silver grasses, perceiving the scenery around the Blue-Silver grasses in his territory. Mu Zhi looked north, where there was a forest called Sunset Forest. Mu Zhi was just experimenting with the power of the Blue-Silver King to explore its more uses. By chance, his power range reached the edge of the Sunset Forest and encountered obstacles. The nearby Blue-Silver grass swayed in response to his power command, and he vaguely felt another will competing with him for control of the Blue-Silver grass. Due to the distance being too far, when Mu Zhi's spiritual power used the power of the Blue-Silver King to perceive here, the intensity had greatly decreased. However, he could feel that the willpower of that consciousness was never as strong as his. There are other Blue-Silver Kings in the Sunset Forest. Only in this way can the Blue-Silver grass at the border sway over the command of the Blue-Silver King's authority. If the authority of the Blue-Silver Emperor orders these Blue-Silver grasses not to even sway. Moreover, with the strength of Mu Zhi's martial soul, he could even vaguely perceive the power of the Blue-Silver Emperor. After all, the current Blue-Silver Emperor is in a weak period and his consciousness is ignorant. If it weren't for his own lineage as the golden silk Blue-Silver grass, which was one level higher than Mu Zhi's Blue-Silver King, the power of the Blue-Silver Emperor would have come to seek Mu Zhi long ago. But it's also fast. As long as I absorb the essence of the Blue-Silver King, my martial soul will definitely advance to the golden silk Blue-Silver grass. At that time, the power of the Blue-Silver grass clan will automatically fall on my martial soul, becoming the new Blue-Silver King. Mu Zhi thought to himself. Although he has enough confidence, even as the Blue-Silver King, he will not be weaker than the owner of the awakened Blue-Silver King. Although his martial soul is Blue-Silver grass, he himself is not Blue-Silver grass. He is a living person. His own will can definitely suppress the power of the Blue-Silver Emperor. Only those with weak willpower who cannot suppress the control of the Blue-Silver Emperor's power over their own martial soul will face the owner of the Blue-Silver Emperor's martial soul, and their strength will be greatly reduced, even their martial soul cannot be used. Does bloodline suppress Muja? Ha! I think too much. Has Muja ever heard of the following? No, we can give you a free experience. If Muja really doesn't do anything, let Tang-san awaken the Blue-Silver Emperor according to the original plot, and then use the Blue-Silver Emperor's power to suppress Muja during the war against him. Muja can also use the Blue-Silver Emperor to teach him what it means for the Emperor to rebel without reason, and ministers can only replace him. Of course, the opposite is different. If Muja gains the power of the Blue-Silver Emperor, he is confident in allowing Tang-san's Blue-Silver Grass martial soul to control Tang-san in reverse. After all, power is just power, and the strength of its performance depends only on the will of the controller. But that's the case, why not use the ready-made power? He decided that his first soul ring would be the Blue-Silver King in the Sunset Forest. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Xin of the Blue-Silver Grass Clan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Xin of the Blue-Silver Grass Clan. Can you successfully absorb the Blue-Silver King from the Sunset Forest as the first soul ring? Muja has carefully considered this issue. The Blue-Silver King usually grows in rarely visited deep valleys, cliffs, and dense forests. The first two environments are because there are very few people or soul beasts arriving in these two places. The probability of Blue-Silver Grass growing into Blue-Silver King is also higher. In these two places, it is common to see several younger Blue-Silver Kings scattered around a tall one. Because these two environments are relatively harsh with no biological activity, only the tenacious Blue-Silver Grass can grow freely here, and soft-bone rabbits, curved-horned sheep, and so on will not specifically search for food in these places. So most of the Blue-Silver Kings are here. As for the power conflict of the Blue-Silver King, it will not happen either. In the Blue-Silver Grass Clan, the power of the Blue-Silver King is the same, no one is higher or lower, and it is not because of the year that the power is higher. The Blue-Silver Grass family has only two types of authority, one is the authority of the Blue-Silver Emperor, and the other is the authority of the Blue-Silver King. The power of the Blue-Silver Emperor is limited to only one in the whole continent, and will automatically fall on the highest cultivation Blue-Silver Grass. And the power of the Blue-Silver King will automatically be obtained as long as the cultivation of the Blue-Silver Grass exceeds 10,000 years. Of course, with the same authority, the cultivation levels of the Blue-Silver Kings are different. Under the same authority, the cultivation level is definitely higher, and those with strong willpower have a higher priority in commanding the secondary Blue-Silver Grass. However, it is also because of the same authority that even high cultivation Blue-Silver Kings cannot use their authority to issue orders to low cultivation Blue-Silver Kings. Even if there is a large difference in willpower, it is not possible. As Blue-Silver Kings, they can choose whether to have a contract partner according to their own will, but cannot be forced. The authority of the Blue-Silver King can only target higher-level Blue-Silver Grass, and the only one who can command the Blue-Silver King is the Blue-Silver Emperor. In the dense forest, the Blue-Silver King is often the lucky one. When he was young, he escaped the mouth of herbivorous soul beasts and became a century-old soul beast, making it difficult for the Blue-Silver Grass to die again. Because the 100-year-old Blue-Silver Grass has a well-developed root system, even if the above-ground parts are eaten up, the root system can still be restored without extinction. If the century-old Blue-Silver Grass will still be destroyed due to the aftermath of soul-beast battles, then the lucky Blue-Silver Grass that has become a millennium old can basically declare immortality. The 1,000-year-old Blue-Silver Grass root system can reach 5 to 6 meters underground. Unless it is a human who specifically hunts the soul rings of the millennium Blue-Silver Grass, no soul beast would spend time digging 5 or 6 meters underground to specifically kill the Blue-Silver King. And the Blue-Silver King, who has lived for thousands of years, is an existence that even the Soul Emperor cannot kill even after exhausting his soul power. Because the Blue Silver King has a wider range of vitality and stronger recovery ability through power, without the ability to destroy the Blue Silver King in a short period of time, there is basically no possibility of killing the Blue Silver King. However, there will be no blue-silver grass around the Blue Silver King that grows in the dense forest. The Blue Silver King is the favorite of high-level herbivorous soul beasts. So, around the Blue Silver King, there are often several high-level herbivorous soul beasts. Take a few bites when you're hungry, it's both delicious and nutritious, and it recovers quickly. Often, after finishing it in the morning, it grows back in the afternoon. It can be said that it is a daily absorption of the vitality of blue-silver grass, and it is strange to have blue-silver grass around. The size of the blue-silver grass increases by 1 meter every 1,000 years, and the blue-silver grass with a size of up to 100 meters in a radius is the soul beast of 100,000 grade. It will also transform into a golden silk blue-silver grass, and its vitality will be further upgraded. At the same time, resilience will also increase sharply. If the resilience of the Blue Silver King, which has been around for 10,000 years, can only match that of a 100-year-old ordinary vine spirit beast, then the resilience of the 100,000-year golden silk blue silver grass can already match that of the same level ordinary vine spirit beast. With Muja's understanding of blue silver grass. If Tang San's mother had not been transformed into a human body, her true form would not have died if it were not for the 99-level peerless Douluo or divine intervention. Even the peerless Douluo, who is not good at attacking, may not be able to kill the Blue Silver Emperor. Most people on Douluo continent underestimate the potential of the Blue Silver Grass race. The reason why the lowest level Blue Silver Grass is weak is because its racial talent is all focused on survival, and this characteristic is completely invisible when weak. Only as the individual becomes stronger will this characteristic become more abnormal. So there was the lowest level of blue silver grass, which was even inferior to ordinary talent soul beasts. Centennial blue silver grass could only barely compare to ordinary soul beasts, millennium soul beasts could compare to intermediate talent soul beasts, and by the time the talent of 10,000-year blue silver grass began to show advantages, only second to top talent soul beasts. The 100,000-year golden silk blue silver grass was considered top among top soul beasts. Previously, no soul master had chosen the blue silver grass soul beast as the soul ring, so no one had ever discovered the characteristics of blue silver grass. In the original work, Ayan's death can be said to be completely limited by soul power. After all, the blue silver emperor's martial soul is not the blue silver emperor's body. The restoration of the Blue Silver Emperor's body can directly absorb vitality, but the restoration of the Blue Silver Emperor's martial soul requires Ayan to transport soul power. Even though Ayan has extremely strong vitality and can absorb it and restore himself through the power of the Blue Silver Emperor, his small body is still easily destroyed in front of the title Douluo. Returning to the initial question, can we choose the Blue Silver King for the first soul ring? Muja believed it was still possible. Firstly, his spiritual power was strong enough to not be afraid of the resentful attacks of the eternal soul beasts after their death. Moreover, the Blue Silver King generally had a gentle temperament, and his spiritual attacks after death were weaker than those of other ferocious soul beasts. Although his physical fitness is not enough to withstand the oppression of the eternal soul ring, his martial soul is of the same origin as the Blue Silver King, and he can better absorb the source of the Blue Silver King. This will reduce the pressure of the Eternal Soul Ring's soul power flushing, and he can also use the power of the Blue Silver King to absorb vitality and restore himself, while destroying and repairing, which can be used as a body training opportunity. His spiritual strength is also sufficient to support him in completing this process. Then let's talk about the possibility of finding and killing the Blue Silver King. With the same authority as the Blue Silver King, it is still easy for Muja to find the position of the Blue Silver King. In terms of killing, it is still impossible to rely solely on Muja's current strength without relying on external forces. However, In Muja's opinion, this external force is also easy to find. Yang Yuning has a soul saint teacher, and he still knows about it. Through Yang Yuning's relationship, Muja requested her teacher to help him obtain the first soul ring. He believed that the problem should not be a big one. After all, who would refuse to marry a genius with innate soul power? And a soul saint takes action, and with the power of Muja to suppress it, it cannot absorb the vitality of the blue-silver grass. With its own vitality restored, as long as the blue-silver king in the sunset forest cultivates for no more than 30,000 years, Muja is confident that it will become his soul ring. So Muja set his first soul ring. However, how to obtain this first soul ring gave him a vague idea in his heart. If this idea goes smoothly, perhaps I don't need to rely on external forces, said Muja, his eyes flickering with the flickering stars in the sky. Before asking teacher Yuning for help, perhaps I can go to the sunset forest by myself. The bold idea in my mind grew stronger, and Muja couldn't help but mutter. Before that, I need to make some preparations. Muja is not the kind of person who loses his rationality on impulse. Although the sunset forest is not as dangerous as the starry forest, the number of soul beasts in it is still not a small fraction. Moreover, as a soul warrior who has practiced for 3 years, even 100 years of soul beasts can bring him certain risks, let alone 10,000 years. So he needs to do 2 experiments first. If the experiments go smoothly, his safety in the sunset forest will be greatly guaranteed. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Supercomputers and Gathering Spirit Array. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Supercomputers and Gathering Spirit Array. For the blue-silver throne, Muja believes that there is still a lot of potential to be developed. It can never be as simple as absorbing vitality and perceiving images. After learning about the secrets of the blue-silver king's power, he came up with several good ideas. Now it's perfect to experiment. The first idea is the array of consciousness. Through the authority of the blue-silver king, one can perceive the image through the blue-silver grass, which is essentially the image seen by the blue-silver grass's own consciousness and shared with Muja under the command of authority. This indicates that blue-silver grass also has a certain level of consciousness, even if the consciousness is weak. Moreover, the transmission of images is real-time, just like information transmission does not require time and directly travels through space to Muja's mind. How the blue-silver grass clan managed it, Muja still doesn't know. He feels that this problem requires him to reach a certain level to find the answer. The most important thing now is still to experiment with that idea. Numerous, with a certain level of awareness, and extremely fast information transmission speed. What can you think of when these 3 points come together? When Muja realized these 3 points, the first image in his mind was the human computer mentioned in his previous life's 3-body problem. Muja still remembers the shock when he first saw a human computer composed of 30 million soldiers, and the entire city was filled with various parts of the computer composed of soldiers. Although it was later confirmed that human computers cannot be implemented by humans in reality. Even if there are actually 30 million people to make up a human computer, the computational speed may be slower than a single person's manual calculations. But that's also because transmitting information between people takes too long. If replaced by blue-silver grass, it can perfectly solve this problem. Muja felt a little excited in his heart. If the experiment went smoothly, perhaps the first computer from Douluo continent would be born today. Muja took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and then systematically passed his ideas through the power of the blue-silver king to the blue-silver grass in his territory. It was said to be an experiment, but in reality, Muja only needed to activate that idea to complete it. After all, everything was controlled by Muja's mind to control the power of the blue-silver king and make the blue-silver grass's consciousness accept and make corresponding changes. Any of these steps are metaphysical operations and do not involve material changes. So it only takes a moment from the beginning to the end of the experiment. However, the final result of the experiment surprised Muzhe. His research on the power of the blue-silver king is still too superficial. When he passed on his ideas and specific arrangements to the authority immediately made arrangements. Countless blue-silver grasses instantly became the most basic, door component as envisioned by Muzhe. Each blue-silver grass's consciousness was then divided into various units by region, ultimately forming a motherboard in Muzhe's perception of the blue-silver king's authority, and the authority was the host. Muzhe's spiritual power directly inputted or obtained information through the authority. All of these were not unexpected by Muzhe, but when he was about to actually use this computer, he found that the motherboard was surprisingly good. And comparing it to a motherboard is actually inappropriate. Muzhe could sense that although blue-silver grass formed the blue-silver grass computer, as he had imagined, it underwent a magical transformation. Although it successfully implemented Muzhe's idea and had the basic functions of a computer, its instantaneous computing efficiency far exceeded Muzhe's transistor computer efficiency. After all, this motherboard is not composed of material entities, but of metaphysical consciousness. The actual calculation and operation principle of it is far beyond what Muzhe's current knowledge reserves can understand. It is like a collection of countless blue-silver grass consciousness, but it transcends this concept. Muzhe didn't even know how to describe it. Perhaps it can be called the heavenly way. The heavenly way of the blue-silver grass clan. A strange idea suddenly came to Muzhe's mind. In the past life, some people often speculated that the heavenly way was a collection of sentient beings' thoughts, but it was not just a collection of sentient beings' thoughts. To be more precise, the heavenly way transcended people's existing cognition. The so-called Tao can be Tao, and the extraordinary Tao is like this. People's descriptions of the heavenly way are not comprehensive. And it gave Muzhe a feeling similar to the heavenly way. Of course, it feels similar, but there is still a significant difference between it and the true heavenly way. It is more like an extremely incomplete, rudimentary, miniature heavenly path, belonging only to the blue-silver grass tribe. Since that's the case, let's call this computer, micropath. If you don't understand, just don't think about it. After all, that is not what his current knowledge reserves and realm can understand. It's just like a beggar speculating that the emperor will eat 5 Xiaogang, baked cake and griddle, every day. Not only is it wrong to guess, but it's also extremely ridiculous. He just needs to know that it's useful. Wei Dao is the most basic unit composed of the consciousness of blue-silver grass, so when Muzhe's spiritual power is enhanced and the territory covered by blue-silver king's authority expands to cover more blue-silver grass, its ability will become stronger. That's really good, there's a bit more motivation to gain the power of the blue-silver emperor. The first idea of the experiment won the jackpot, and Muzhe looked forward to the upcoming experiment even more. With the help of a supercomputer, he was even more confident in the upcoming experiment. The second idea is the spiritual vortex. Muzhe plans to have the blue-silver grass within his territory practice at the same pace, and see if countless blue-silver grasses can gather a vortex of spiritual energy under the command of one will, allowing the spiritual energy around the territory to be drawn into it, directly increasing the concentration of spiritual energy within the territory. Equivalent to a large gathering spirit formation. In the past, the absorption of spiritual energy by blue-silver grass and the improvement of cultivation rely entirely on instinct. When absorbing spiritual energy, they also compete with each other for the surrounding spiritual energy. Blue-silver grass's talent for cultivation is also particularly useless when they are weak. They can hardly compete for spiritual energy compared to other species of soul beasts, and can only absorb the edge spiritual energy that escapes during the cultivation of other types of soul beasts for cultivation. These corner spiritual energies also have to compete with other nearby blue-silver grasses, which is equivalent to internal competition. Now there is a unified will leadership that enables the blue-silver grass tribe to unite externally. If a blue-silver grass cultivates and competes for spiritual energy but cannot compete with ordinary soul beasts, then 3 plants should practice and compete together. If 3 plants are not enough, then 10 plants should be cultivated, and if 10 plants are not enough, then 100 plants should be cultivated. Low-level blue-silver grass cannot do anything else, but the quantity is sufficient. There will always be times when we can compete. If Muja's experiment is successful, the efficiency of the blue-silver grass family's cultivation will be greatly improved. The increase in cultivation efficiency of blue-silver grass within the territory can also indirectly affect the micropath. The operation of the micropath relies on the consciousness of the blue-silver grass. If it runs for a long time, there will always be moments of conscious fatigue. However, if the cultivation efficiency is improved and the absorption of spiritual energy is sufficient, the consciousness can be nourished. The running time of microchannels can be greatly extended. If the efficiency is high enough, the awareness of blue-silver grass will gradually increase, and the performance of microchannels will also gradually become stronger. And Muja's idea is not just that simple, the swirling spiritual energy is the key. In Muja's vision, he regarded territory as a human body, and a vortex of spiritual energy rolled up by a plant, a follower, a cluster, or a direct area of blue-silver grass as an acupoint for the human body. Meanwhile, Muja controlled the great human body through the power of the blue-silver king and directly practiced through his territory. Muja's idea was also inspired by a traditional Chinese medicine theory he saw in his past life. The human body is a small world. Since the human body is a small world, can the world on the other hand be a human body? Can a group led by a unified will be human? Whether heaven and earth can be human beings is already supported by myths known to Muja in his past life. Pangu opened the sky and struck the earth, and after his death, his body transformed into mountains, rivers, and the sun, moon, and stars. But these pieces of information are still too far from Muja's current state, and he doesn't know how to use this information to strengthen himself. He can only save this project for future development and research. And whether a unified ethnic group can be a single person, Muja happens to have the conditions to study. So, by analogy with the characteristic of the human body absorbing spiritual energy through acupoints, the concept of the great human body, spiritual energy vortex was proposed. Under the leadership of a unified will, the blue-silver grass in the entire territory has a clear division of labor, dividing each acupoint and function by region. Some acupoints absorb spiritual energy, while others are responsible for transporting and refining spiritual energy. Finally nourish the blue-silver grass throughout the entire territory. Muja himself sat in the Dantian position where the ultimate spiritual energy was stored, practicing with a massive amount of spiritual energy purified from the blue-silver grass great human body. The cultivation effect of such a blue-silver grass tribe is far superior to the previous situation of blue-silver grass fighting alone, and Muja can also improve his own cultivation efficiency through this, achieving a win-win situation. Originally, if the first idea did not succeed, Muja would need to separate a strand of consciousness to control the great human body for cultivation. Now, he only needs to leave a program in the micro-channel to let it run on its own. Muja directly transformed into a humanoid spirit gathering array, where spiritual energy converged wherever he went. When he doesn't want to expose abnormalities in front of outsiders, he can simply control the Weidao to close the program. If the idea is good enough, the most important prerequisite must also be success. So the next experiment is also crucial. Muja first used the micropath to assist in deducing the spiritual flow path suitable for the cultivation of the big human body, and then arranged the experimental effects one by one. Because this experiment was designed to test whether it can form a spiritual vortex and its spiritual gathering effect, it will take time to actually operate. Sitting on the boulder, Muja fell into a busy state, and for a moment, silence returned here. However, in a dark place that is difficult to detect with the naked eye, with a giant stone as the center, the spiritual energy within a radius of hundreds of miles rolls non-stop for a moment. Finally, as the sky approached, dawn broke. The rolling spiritual energy finally stabilized, forming a certain pattern of operational convergence. The center where spiritual energy ultimately converges is the giant stone next to Lanxi village. At this moment, Muzha also sensed a spiritual energy that was so strong that it almost melted into liquid all over his body. Judging solely from this effect, Muzha's experiment was still successful. But Muzha frowned. I don't know why, but he always feels that the spirit-gathering array he created is a bit unnatural. But this is already the most similar gathering spirit formation that has been perfected by him and Weidao. In the past, both fantasy and cultivation have mentioned formations, and there have also been legends of Qimen Duanjia in history. But despite the explosion of internet information in previous lives, there has never been a trace of Xinmi's formation. This humanoid spirit-gathering array diagram was only deduced by Muzha based on his existing knowledge and the computational ability of micropath. From the current actual results, it does indeed conform to Muzha's vision, but Muzha actually felt a bit awkward and unnatural when operating the gathering spirit formation. In theory, this slight awkwardness should not be tolerated. But this theory is also based on the knowledge that Muzha now knows. And this is the real fantasy world, and past theories can only be referenced but not fully believed. It has achieved theoretical perfection, but there is actually unnatural. That can only indicate that this trace of unnaturality is influenced by factors beyond the knowledge of Muzha. This made Muzha frown unconsciously. It's not sadness, but his subconscious behavior when thinking. When conducting pharmacological experiments in his previous life, Muzha also encountered interference from factors beyond known conditions. For this situation, Muzha has always been more challenging and excited. Because this means you have discovered problems that were previously unknown, and these problems have always been the most popular direction for scholars in previous generations. After all, no matter how well you summarize the research of predecessors, it is better to solve a problem that has not been solved by predecessors. As for whether this unnatural trace is true and credible, Muzha can still be certain, because this unnatural trace is transmitted from the power of the Blue-Silver King. More precisely, it is the consciousness transmitted autonomously by the micropath. Muzha still attaches great importance to what is suspected to be transmitted by the miniature heavenly path of the Blue-Silver Grass tribe. Because no one knows more about the Blue-Silver Grass family than Weidao. Even the current, Blue-Silver Emperor, Ian cannot do it. After careful consideration for a while, Muzha watched as a faint light was about to rise in the sky. He could only put this question aside in his heart for now and leave it for this afternoon to ponder. It's time to start early morning meditation and observe the sun. This morning, the Yunshan Plan Youth Edition should be updated again. Muzha awakened his martial soul and wanted to try to incorporate it into meditation. End of this chapter.